Chapter 181. In the vast desert, a sandstorm raged. A young man in an alchemist's robe slowly walked. Behind him, deep footprints were left in the yellow sand. After only a moment, all traces were covered by the yellow sand, hidden beneath the desert's surface. The harsh conditions in the Tager Desert were somewhat beyond Xiaoyan's expectations. The yellow sand under his feet, exposed to the scorching sun, was no different from burning hot iron grains. Every step he took caused Xiaoyan to clench his lips and teeth. Slowly walking, gusts of wind mixed with burning sand struck his face, causing a painful, stinging sensation. At such times, Xiaoyan had no choice but to immediately circulate his dou qi, forming a faint layer of dou qi around his face. Only then avoiding the sandstorm's destruction to his features. Although the conditions in the Great Desert were extremely severe, it contained hidden fire attribute energy, which made Xiaoyan very happy. Perhaps because it was sun-scorched, the fire attribute energy here was almost more robust than that in the small mountain valley in the Magical Beast Mountain range. Furthermore, the fire attribute energy here was also particularly pure and overbearing, which was extremely suitable for Xiaoyan to cultivate his purple flame dou qi. After only half a day in the Great Desert, Xiaoyan could clearly feel that the circulation of the purple flame dou qi in his body was significantly stronger than before. Walking slowly for another 100 meters, Xiaoyan wiped the sweat from his forehead, licked his slightly dry lips, took a bottle of water from his storage ring, took several strong gulps, and only then breathed a sigh of relief as he took out the parchment map. He said with a bitter smile, "Master, it's been half a day, and we still haven't reached the route on the map. Now that we have avoided the main route, where should we go next?" Just head toward the flame symbol in the east," Yao Lao said casually. Hearing this, Xiaoyan held the map and looked carefully for a while. He frowned and sighed. According to this, to reach the flame symbol in the east, we need at least 10 days of travel. Heh, then just go. In this desert, even walking is a form of cultivation. Looking at Xiaoyan's bitter expression, Yao Lao chuckled with a hint of schadenfreude. Sighing softly, Xiaoyan raised his head, looked at the scorching sun over the desert, and his mouth split open. He put the map back into his storage ring, and gently patted the black heavy ruler on his back, couldn't help but smile. Strangely enough, although the black heavy ruler was quite large, despite being exposed to such a scorching sun, it still remained completely cold. It seemed that the sun above had little effect on it, and it also kept Xiaoyan's mind quite clear. After all, if he were forced to carry a hot piece of iron on his back and run everywhere, he would absolutely not do such a foolish thing. Wiping his sweat again, Xiaoyan was about to turn toward the east of the desert when his expression suddenly shifted slightly. He reached out and grabbed the black heavy ruler in reverse. Then he forcefully pulled it out and fiercely stabbed it into the pile of yellow sand in front of him. Hiss! The heavy ruler plunged into the yellow sand. A mournful screech immediately rang out. Xiaoyan withdrew the heavy ruler without changing his expression. A patch of blood oozed from the sand. His sleeve lightly flicked, and a surge of force tossed a small magical beast from the sand. His cold gaze swept over the small magical beast that had lost its life force. This type of magical beast was called a yellow sand demon scorpion. It could only be found in the desert. This type of magical beast often hid in the yellow sand. It waited for someone to step on it. It was like waiting for a rabbit by a tree. At this time, it just needed to release its poison. The demon scorpion was extremely adept at hiding. Even people who traveled the desert year-round would be attacked if they were slightly careless. Therefore, although it was not a Tier 1 magical beast, humans always considered it one of the most difficult creatures to deal with in the desert. However, no matter how good the demon scorpion was at hiding, in Xiaoyan's eyes, with his extraordinary soul perception, it was undoubtedly like a firefly flickering in the dark night. To secretly launch a sneak attack. Heh. It was fundamentally impossible. His gaze swept over the demon scorpion. Xiaoyan took 2 steps forward, cut off its poisonous stinger, and put it into his storage ring. Then he stood up. And his heavy footsteps were lifted again. He slowly started walking toward the east of the desert. Cultivating in the desert. The boredom and harshness were once again beyond Xiaoyan's expectations. Previously, when cultivating in the magical beast mountain range, he didn't feel too lonely. But in this vast desert, looking out, there was only the raging sandstorm in his sight. Let alone a human figure, even the shadow of a magical beast was hard to see. This kind of desolate and lonely feeling was truly hard for a person to endure. The second day after Xiaoyan entered the Tager Desert, the cultivation truly began. Under Yao Lao's request, Xiaoyan was almost only wearing shorts. His upper body was completely bare. Regarding his current appearance, although Xiaoyan intended to protest, he was firmly refused by Yao Lao. The reason was, only by leaving his skin exposed to the sun, could he achieve high efficiency in absorbing the fire attribute. Energy in the air. On the vast yellow sand of the desert, a human figure in shorts and bare-chested was clenching his teeth, and lying prone on the scorching yellow sand. Beside him, an old man's figure, somewhat illusory, was smiling with narrowed eyes. He held a small clear jade bottle in his hand, which contained a type of red liquid. The mouth of the bottle was slowly tilted, pouring a few drops of the red liquid onto the young man's slightly tanned back, which was scorched by the sun. Hiss! As soon as the red liquid fell on his back, Xiaoyan bit his teeth tightly and immediately inhaled sharply. His 2 hands fiercely gripped the yellow sand, completely ignoring whether the sand grains were burning hot or not. This blood stimulant is much more effective for assistance in the desert than when you were in the magical beast mountain range. Although this thing is relatively difficult to concoct, the effect is indeed not bad. In the desert, it can make your skin more sensitive to the fire attribute energy in the air, and the cultivation efficiency can also be doubled. Using a jade piece to slowly close the liquid bottle, Yao Lao looked at the young man's tightly gritted teeth and persistent look. A hint of satisfaction flashed in his eyes, and he explained with a smile in a soft voice. Xiaoyan grinned, but his smile was somewhat unsightly. Then he muttered, "It's fine. Just pour more on. Anyway, I've gotten used to it these past few days. This disciple has no advantages, but I am naturally good at adapting to hardship. Heh, my life is even tougher than a cockroach's. But the cultivation these past few days has indeed not been bad. I can already feel that the Dou Qi in my body is rushing straight toward the 1-star Dou Master realm." His hand clenched the yellow sand, and Xiaoyan said excitedly, "Ha." Nodding with a smile, Yao Lao said softly, "All right, enter the cultivation state. Now is the most suitable time for cultivation. Don't waste this state." Hearing this, Xiaoyan quickly nodded. Without saying any more nonsense, he lay there, exposing his back to the scorching sun. At the same time, his face was pressed close to the burning yellow sand. A layer of douqi covered his face, and then, like an ostrich, he buried his head in the hot sand pile. Xiaoyan's peculiar cultivation posture at this moment was intentionally instructed by Yao Lao. Because in this desert, although fire attribute energy was contained everywhere, after being exposed to the sun all day, the fire attribute energy in the sand had undergone precipitation, making it purer. Therefore, Xiaoyan had to cultivate in this strange posture, like an ostrich. With his head buried in the sand, Xiaoyan sensed the tranquility. The sound of the sandstorm's destruction around him gradually subsided. His mind was completely calm at this moment. Xiao Yan could detect that the blood stimulant, liquid on his back, was rapidly seeping into his body under the sun's light. Although the seeping process caused his skin to burn and his tendons and bones to constantly contract in pain, the robust and pure fire attribute energy made Xiao Yan rejoice ceaselessly in his heart. With the blood stimulant stimulating him, the already extremely dense fire attribute energy in the surrounding heaven and earth, even more so, seemed to have found its source, continuously pouring into Xiao Yan's body. After becoming a Dou master, Xiao Yan was able to properly manage the energy without requiring too much effort. Controlling the fire attribute energy circulating through several meridians, and after cultivating like this, the fire attribute energy was infused into the purple chi sphere in his Dantian cultivation. It proceeded in this boring and solitary manner. Just as the blood stimulant on Xiao Yan's back was completely absorbed, the purple chi sphere in his Dantian finally condensed another drop of purple liquid. The tiny purple liquid drop flowed nimbly within the purple chi sphere, like a small fish, lightly and vividly in a pond. Focusing his mind on the tiny purple liquid drop, Xiao Yan smiled slightly. After this period of testing, he vaguely calculated that it seemed that when the tiny liquid drops inside the purple chi sphere reached 15 drops, he would have enough energy to advance to 2-star Dou master. Currently, the number of liquid drops in the purple chi sphere was 13. In other words, if he could condense 2 more drops of purple liquid, then Xiao Yan should be able to advance to 2-star Dou master. Quick! Quietly shouting in his heart, Xiao Yan raised his head fiercely threw a handful of yellow sand, and then sprang up from the sand. He shouted toward the sky, "Quick! 2-star Dou master!" Standing on the side, Yao Lao detected the emotional release in Xiao Yan's shout and chuckled softly. He quietly muttered, "Little fellow, although your talent is not low, your effort is the key to final success. I am very much looking forward to that 3-year agreement a few months from now. The humiliation she gave you back then, now, you have the qualifications to personally demand it back." Slowly raising his head, Yao Lao looked up at the sun, then tilted his head and stared intently at the young man's slender and resolute back. His smile suddenly became a little cold. "Although the cultivation is arduous, you have never given up. All success is achieved by your own efforts and sweat. I believe that one day, you will stand at the peak of the Dou Chi continent." Vast desert, the color of yellow sand was the only color in this place. A fierce wind blew the sand grains, swirling them into the heavens and earth. Gusts of wind echoed ceaselessly in his ears. On a sand dune, Xiao Yan was bare-chested. His eyebrows tightly furrowed as he looked at the map in his hand. More than 10 days had passed since he entered the Tager Desert. And in these 10 days of walking, Xiao Yan had finally approached the area of the flame symbol on the map. But after entering the area yesterday, Xiao Yan searched all day, yet still found no trace related to the flame. Why is there nothing? Were we tricked by that old fellow? Xiao Yan held up the parchment map in his hand, looked up at Yao Lao floating in midair, and said with a frowning, bitter smile, "This? I don't know either. The surrounding terrain is no different from other places, and I also don't sense any unusual movements here." Yao Lao slowly descended, and said with some helplessness, "If this map has no problem, then there's a more than 50% chance that there are no traces of the flame here." Shaking his head, Xiao Yan sighed and said, "Perhaps so. Alas. Damn it, wasting more than 10 days of walking." Xiao Yan angrily shook the parchment map and scolded dejectedly. "Ha ha, it wasn't a waste of effort. At least during these 10+ days of cultivation, you have gradually approached the 1-star Dou master level. As long as you continue cultivating for a period of time, breaking through to 2-star Dou master should be a smooth transition." Yao Lao said comfortingly with a smile. Hearing this, Xiaoyan still pouted with some reluctance. His finger pointed at the flame symbol on the map, and he pondered, I'll continue searching. After all, this symbol is so large. And the area it covers is not small. We are also not familiar with the terrain here, so naturally, we need more time to search. Otherwise, if we miss it, wouldn't we regret it to death? This area is indeed not small. That old fellow is truly lazy. Alas. Then let's search for 2 more days. After 2 days, we'll change our route and head north, going back and forth on both sides. Like this, if not for a month, it will be difficult to reach. Yao Lao glanced at the flame symbol, slightly frowned. Then he nodded. Smiling bitterly, Xiaoyan sighed again. He habitually patted the huge black heavy ruler on his back, then lifted his feet, and walked toward the sea of sand. The scorching sun was directly overhead. Xiaoyan once again walked for nearly half an hour, covered in sweat. Just as he was about to stop for a brief rest, his eyebrows suddenly furrowed. He turned his head, and looked at a sand dune not far away. There an extremely disheveled figure was running away. At the bottom of the sand dune. A moment of carelessness, and he directly rolled down the sand dune. Slightly frowning as he watched the person roll down, he finally rolled to a spot not far in front of him. Xiaoyan helplessly shook his head. He walked forward. He took out a water pouch from his storage ring. Then he splashed it on the man's face, stimulated by the water source. The man opened his eyes from his unconscious state, seeing Xiaoyan appear in front of him. He was first startled, but finding that he had no malicious intent, only then did he breathe a sigh of relief. Faintly glancing at the man, Xiaoyan casually took out 2 or 3 bottles of clean water from his storage ring. Then he gave them to the man next to him. He turned and started to walk away. In the depths of Xiaoyan's heart, he never considered himself a good person with a bodhisattva-like heart. Meeting an injured stranger in the desert, being able to give him some water was already the maximum limit. If he was asked to personally shelter and protect the person until he left the desert, then he could only apologize. Little brother. Seeing Xiaoyan turn and walk away without hesitation, the man was slightly stunned. Then he quickly said hoarsely, Little brother, please stop. We are a mercenary team attacked by the snake people. We are currently facing a life or death situation. I still ask the little brother to go to Mo City for help to call for reinforcements. Sorry. I don't have time. Without turning his head, Xiaoyan raised his hand and said indifferently. He couldn't be blamed for his indifference. Every day in this world, countless people were dying. Was he supposed to help everyone find reinforcements? If one chose to be a mercenary in the Tager Desert, then such encounters were naturally to be expected. Little brother. Watching Xiaoyan slowly walk away, the man gritted his teeth and moved his body slightly. He strained all his strength and shouted loudly, Little brother, please help. If you can save our team, our Mo Thai mercenary group will definitely reward you with a large sum of money as thanks. As the man's shout fell, the young man in the distance, who was about to disappear behind the sandstorm, suddenly stopped. The next instant, he turned back and walked to the man's side under his ecstatic gaze. Mo Thai mercenary group. Is it the Mo Thai mercenary group of Mo City? Xiaoyan opened his eyes wide. A hint of surprise appeared in his dark pupils. Such a coincidence. Yes. Little brother has heard of our mercenary group. Seeing this, the man was somewhat uncertain whether Xiaoyan had good or bad intentions toward the Mo Thai mercenary group. However, Under these circumstances, he had to persevere. Your group leaders are named Xiao Ding, Xiao Li. The man licked his dry lips and said cautiously. Oh. Slightly nodding. The smile on Xiao Yan's face softened considerably. He crouched down, flipped over to examine the wound on the man's thigh with his finger, and then gave him a medicinal pill. Eat it. First. Neutralize the snake venom. Thank you, little brother. The man quickly accepted the medicinal pill, and said gratefully, swallowing the pill into his stomach. This is a healing medicine. With that wound, it shouldn't be anything serious. After applying it, take me to where your mercenary team is. Xiao Yan took out a very small bottle of healing medicine from his storage ring. Gave it to the man again, then stood up, clapped his hands, and said with a smile. Go in there. Hearing this, the man was startled and quickly said, little brother, that won't do. The ones surrounding our team are 8 snake people, and there are 7 9-star Dou practitioners among them. Little brother, you should quickly go to Mo City, and help me notify the mercenary group. Our group leaders will rush over immediately. This place is not too far. The man painfully advised. Stop talking nonsense. Hurry up and apply the medicine, then lead the way. Since I can do this, I naturally have some confidence. Otherwise, if we wait for them to bring people, your comrades will all be dead. Xiao Yan lightly kicked the man, rolled his eyes, and urged. You are reading the story at Trien Full www.Trien Full. Hearing Xiao Yan's words, the man half believed and half doubted. He assessed the person in front of him again. Bare-chested young man. Shorts. A strange black ruler. These things made it impossible for the man to discern what strength the young man truly possessed. Smiling bitterly, the man applied the healing medicine to his thigh, then his body trembled slightly as he stood up. He pointed his finger toward the sand dune behind him, and said, it's not far from there. His eyes glanced at the sand dune. Xiao Yan slightly nodded. He grabbed the man's arm. His foot suddenly stomped hard on the sand. Following a loud, heavy bang, a huge sand pit was surprisingly created on the sand. Borrowing this recoil force, Xiao Yan and the man's figures suddenly flew up onto the sand dune. Landing on the sand dune, Xiao Yan once again shot forward like lightning for a distance, finally stopping at a high spot on the sand. He put the man in his hand, who was gaping in astonishment, down onto the ground. He took a step forward and discovered a crowd of people in the desert. In the desert below, more than 10 mercenaries were standing back to back with weapons in their hands. Surrounding them were 8 strangely shaped creatures. These creatures had human heads and torsos. But where their legs should be, they unexpectedly had a huge snake tail. As the snake tails whipped around, they emitted a hissing sound, which made people's hearts slightly cold. Are these the snake people of the Tager Desert? Xiao Yan's gaze swept over the 8 male snake people, and he sighed in awe. His horizons were somewhat broadened. This was the first time he had seen this type of creature. Little brother. Your Excellency, they are a small team from our Mo Thai mercenary group. We were originally preparing to hunt magical beasts, but we didn't expect to be ambushed by those people. The man looked at Xiao Yan's back with awe. The speed he had displayed earlier had already made this man realize that the young man in front of him, although young in age, was a strong expert who concealed his true power. Slightly nodding, Xiao Yan's gaze once again swept over the 10 mercenaries. The 10 mercenaries, 8 men and 2 women. His gaze finally stopped on a graceful, beautiful figure. This woman looked about 20 years old. Her face was quite beautiful. However, her eyebrows were slightly raised. She vaguely possessed the aura of an unyielding leopard in the desert. Looking at her temperament, One could imagine that, although this desert flower was very beautiful, she was covered in sharp thorns. Her attire was somewhat daring and revealing. The short clothing only barely covered her chest and the area below her torso, paired with the sexy bronze color of her slender waist, which was fully exposed before everyone's eyes. Likewise, beneath the short leather skirt, a segment of her long, sexy thighs was revealed. Xiaoyan standing above could detect that several snake people had lustful eyes, constantly sweeping over the woman's slender waist and thighs. Kill them. Leave the women. The triangular pupils in the eyes of a snake person leader swept over the woman, and he said in a hoarse voice, revealing a hint of lust. The nature of snakes was inherently lustful. They were instinctively greedy and covetous toward women. Hearing the leader's command, a murderous look appeared on the faces of the surrounding snake people. They slightly parted their mouths, spitting out fresh red snake tongues. Everyone be careful. Danzi has gone back to call for help. As long as we hold on for a while, we will be rescued. Seeing the snake people's movement, the sexy woman tightly pursed her red lips and shouted in a cold voice. Hearing this, the mercenaries around were somewhat invigorated, but their hands still tightly gripped their weapons, yet were still covered in sweat. The highest tier among them was only a 7-star Dou practitioner, but the opponents had several 9-star Dou practitioners. This kind of disparity. They didn't know if they could hold on until reinforcements arrived. Kill. The snake person leader laughed coldly and waved his hand. The surrounding snake people, like tigers stalking their prey, immediately looked ferocious and rushed toward the mercenary team in the center. Just as the snake people began their attack, a sharp sound of tearing air rang out. A black figure suddenly streaked across the sky, and finally, like a black bolt of lightning, it fell heavily to the ground a distance between the snake people and the mercenaries. With a loud bang, the yellow sand gradually flew away. A figure holding a huge black ruler in his hand slowly appeared in everyone's sight. Are these the snake people of the Tiger Desert? Xiaoyan's gaze swept over the 8 male snake people, and he sighed in awe. His horizons were somewhat broadened. This was the first time he had seen this type of creature. Little brother. Your Excellency, they are a small team from our Mo Tai mercenary group. We were originally preparing to hunt magical beasts, but we didn't expect to be ambushed by those people. The man looked at Xiaoyan's back with awe. The speed he had displayed earlier had already made this man realize that the young man in front of him, although young in age, was a strong expert who concealed his true power. Slightly nodding, Xiaoyan's gaze once again swept over the 10 mercenaries. The 10 mercenaries, 8 men and 2 women. His gaze finally stopped on a graceful, beautiful figure. This woman looked about 20 years old. Her face was quite beautiful. However, her eyebrows were slightly raised. She vaguely possessed the aura of an unyielding leopard in the desert. Looking at her temperament, one could imagine that, although this desert flower was very beautiful, she was covered in sharp thorns. Her attire was somewhat daring and revealing. The short clothing only barely covered her chest and the area below her torso, paired with the sexy bronze color of her slender waist, which was fully exposed before everyone's eyes. Likewise, beneath the short leather skirt, a segment of her long, sexy thighs was revealed. Xiaoyan standing above could detect that several snake people had lustful eyes, constantly sweeping over the woman's slender waist and thighs. Kill them. Leave the women. The triangular pupils in the eyes of a snake person leader swept over the woman, and he said in a hoarse voice, revealing a hint of lust. The nature of snakes was inherently lustful. They were instinctively greedy and covetous toward women. Hearing the leader's command, a murderous look appeared on the faces of the surrounding snake people. They slightly parted their mouths, spitting out fresh red snake tongues. Everyone be careful. Danzi has gone back to call for help. As long as we hold on for a while, we will be rescued. Seeing the snake people's movement, the sexy woman tightly pursed her red lips and shouted in a cold voice. Hearing this, the mercenaries around were somewhat invigorated, but their hands still tightly gripped their weapons, yet were still covered in sweat. The highest tier among them was only a 7-star Dou practitioner, but the opponents had several 9-star Dou practitioners. This kind of disparity. They didn't know if they could hold on until reinforcements arrived. Kill. The snake person leader laughed coldly and waved his hand. The surrounding snake people, like tigers stalking their prey, immediately looked ferocious and rushed toward the mercenary team in the center. Just as the snake people began their attack, a sharp sound of tearing air rang out. A black figure suddenly streaked across the sky, and finally, like a black bolt of lightning, it fell heavily to the ground a distance between the snake people and the mercenaries. With a loud bang, the yellow sand gradually flew away. A figure holding a huge black ruler in his hand slowly appeared in everyone's sight. Chapter 183. The sudden appearance of the shirtless young man startled both sides momentarily. But only a moment later the mercenaries calmed down. Since the person who appeared was human, they believed that he would at least not help the snake people. As for the snake people, seeing Xiaoyan, the uninvited guest, appear, they were furious. Their ominous, triangular eyes looked at Xiaoyan. Without saying a word, the leader waved his hand. 2 5-star Dou practitioner snake people on either side brandished their tails, glared ferociously, and charged toward Xiaoyan. When Xiaoyan arrived at Mo City, night had already fallen. Although Xiaoyan didn't usually drink, this time he made an exception and drank with Xiao Ding and Xiao Li until he was completely drunk. The next day, Xiaoyan's head was somewhat muddled. He slowly opened his eyelids from his groggy sleep and found that the sky was already bright. His hand rubbed his slightly throbbing head, then he tilted his head to look at the thin blanket on his body, slowly sat up, vigorously shook his head, gave a bitter smile, and then crossed his legs, forming a hand seal to enter the cultivation state, beginning to expel the remaining alcohol from his body. After cultivating for a long time, a stream of concentrated alcohol vapor shot out from Xiaoyan's finger. After forcing out all the alcohol vapor from his body, Xiaoyan gently exhaled. Only then did he slowly open his eyes, and his dark pupils once again returned to clarity. Creak. Not long after Xiaoyan opened his eyes, the room door was suddenly gently pushed open, and a beautiful figure quietly entered. However, after seeing Xiaoyan sitting on the bed, she was slightly startled and quickly bowed, saying fearfully, "Young Master Xiaoyan, you are awake." The girl who entered was not old. She looked slightly younger than Xiaoyan. She wore a graceful green dress. Although her figure was petite, her body development seemed relatively mature, yet she still looked somewhat innocent. She had a delicate and lovely oval face, truly like an exquisite doll. Her shy demeanor, like a frightened little rabbit, made anyone who saw her feel pity. Xiaoyan was also stunned for a moment upon seeing the green-clothed girl, then he nodded kindly toward her. "Young Master Xiaoyan, I came to help you wash up." Gently placing the basin of water she was holding onto the wooden stand beside the bed, the lovely girl stood nervously by the bed and said in a low voice, "No need. I'll do it myself." Shaking his head with a smile, Xiaoyan stepped off the bed and then walked to the wooden stand. He casually washed his face once, then tilted his head to look at the girl's nervous demeanor, and couldn't help but ask with a smile, "What is your name?" Hearing this, the girl was stunned, then opened her mouth and said, My name is Qing Lin." "Oh." Slightly nodding, Xiaoyan grabbed the towel to wipe his face. Then he lightly tossed the towel into the basin, and looked up at the sky, taking a light, comfortable breath. Seeing Xiaoyan finished washing up, Qinglin quickly carried the basin of water and walked toward the door. Turning his head, looking at the girl's graceful figure, Xiaoyan's gaze suddenly landed on the girl's gentle and graceful waist. He didn't know why, but he felt that the subtle movement of the girl's delicate waist possessed an unusual allure. Like the seductive waist of a snake woman. How vulgar. What am I thinking randomly? The inexplicable thoughts in his mind made Xiaoyan smile bitterly and scold himself. He returned to the bedside, tightly grasped the huge handle of the black heavy ruler, softly shouted, and then lifted it with force. Carrying the black heavy ruler on his shoulder, Xiaoyan gently turned his body. After a year of arduous cultivation, he was almost completely accustomed to the weight of the black heavy ruler now. Xiaoyan knew that his power and strength had both grown significantly. If he suddenly increased his speed and strength during a battle with an enemy, his opponent would certainly be caught off guard. With his hand gripping the black heavy ruler in reverse, Xiaoyan powerfully swung it out. Following a fierce sound, the wooden stand next to him shattered into pieces with a crash. Looking at the shattered wooden stand, Xiaoyan grinned, and then relaxed the black heavy ruler onto his back. Ah! At the door, Qinglin, who had just returned with the water, looked at the mess in the room, and couldn't help but let out a soft cry of surprise. Then she quickly rushed over, and bent down to pick up the clothes that had fallen to the floor. Looking at the little girl running around, Xiaoyan smiled awkwardly, then bent down and reached out, wanting to help her pick up the fallen clothes. Suddenly, his moving gaze stopped at a section of Qinglin's snow-white wrist exposed beneath her sleeve. On the snow-white wrist, a few tiny blue snake scales were unexpectedly visible. His eyes stared at Qinglin in surprise. Xiaoyan's gaze uncontrollably swept toward Qinglin's two legs, but he did not see a snake tail, only a pair of tiny, 3-inch heels that made one feel like holding them in their hand to admire. Qinglin, who was currently collecting clothes, suddenly raised her small face. She saw Xiaoyan's surprised gaze, which slowly moved away, and finally stopped at the snake scales on her arm that were accidentally exposed. Instantly, her lovely small face immediately turned pale. Her hand gently pulled down her sleeve, then she slowly retreated step by step. She curled up against the corner of the wall, holding her legs, her body continuously trembling. You are reading the story at Thien Full www.Thien Full. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you. The girl trembled, hugging her legs. Her voice was full of fear, a hint of worry, and choked with sobs. Stunned by the little girl's sensitive reaction, and looking at Qinglin's frightened appearance, Xiaoyan sighed softly in his heart. He had heard before that near the Tager Desert, there were occasional incidents of human women being abused by snake people. Generally speaking, a relationship between a snake person and a human would usually not result in pregnancy. However, nothing was absolute. There was always an extremely rare chance that a woman would become pregnant and give birth after a relationship with a snake person. However, even if a child was born, the child with the bloodline of both human and snake person usually struggled to live past 2 years old. But Qinglin in front of Xiaoyan was already around 13 or 14 years old. How could this be? Xiaoyan looked at the little girl in front of him with pity, and smiled bitterly. Even if she lived to be this old, what benefit did it bring? People like Qinglin were cursed by both humans and snake people, living until this moment, apart from being looked down upon and despised. Nothing else seemed to have happened. Slowly walking to Qinglin's side, Xiaoyan crouched down. His hand gently stroked her head, then he took hold of her trembling arm and frightened expression, carefully pulled up her sleeve, looked at the segment of blue snake scales, and suddenly said gently and softly, "These scales are truly beautiful." Hearing this, Qinglin's frightened expression was instantly stunned. Since she was born until now, Xiaoyan was the first person to say that these scales, which even she herself was afraid of, were beautiful. This almost made a strange feeling quietly emerge in her originally damaged soul. She opened her somewhat confused eyes and timidly asked, "Young master, are you not afraid?" Staring intently at the tear lingering in Qing Lin's eye, Xiaoyan finally realized. Her pupils were faintly blue-green, and deep within her pupils, 3 tiny blue-green dots seemed to be hidden. Staring fixedly at the somewhat enchanting blue-green pupils, Xiaoyan's mind was momentarily absent. His heart violently shook, and his mind quickly recovered. A look of shock flashed across his face. What kind of enchanting pupils were these? Even with his soul power, he was momentarily absent-minded. Shocked unexpectedly, Xiaoyan stared intently at her pupils again, and was surprised to find that the 3 tiny blue-green dots were gone. "Did I see things?" he murmured in surprise. Xiaoyan violently shook his head, and stared at her for a moment. Apart from the blue pupils, he didn't see any sign of the blue-green dots. Alas! It must have been the alcohol from last night. Shaking his head helplessly, Xiaoyan pulled down Qing Lin's sleeve, then turned to her side, looked at her frightened and trembling shoulders with a smiling face, and said with a smile, "Sorry for scaring you." Qing Lin quickly shook her head, nervously fiddling with the corner of her clothes. In her perception, Xiaoyan was the first person to apologize to her in so many years. "Young master, during this time, Qing Lin will be your personal maid. Just order Qing Lin if you have anything." Qing Lin bowed and said in a low voice. Chuckling softly, Xiaoyan lightly nodded. He rubbed the girl's head and said with a smile, "Where are my big brothers now? Group leader Xiao Ding and group leader Xiao Li have both gone to tidy up the group's supplies. They instructed me that if young master wants to find them, I should lead you to the front courtyard of the council hall." Qing Lin said gently. "Ah, if they are busy with work, then let's go with that." Shaking his head with a smile, Xiaoyan carried the black heavy ruler on his back and walked outside, saying with a smile, "Let's go. Take me for a tour of the Mo Thai mercenary group." MM. Gently replying, Qing Lin slowly and cautiously followed. Walking out of the room, the bright light outside the room shone down, making his whole body feel warm. Although the desert was hot, it was early morning now, and the sun's temperature was just right, not making people feel hot. Walking alongside Qing Lin within the mercenary group, whenever they encountered passing mercenaries, these people would stop and politely greet Xiaoyan. They must have already known Xiaoyan's identity. However, when their gazes shifted to Qing Lin next to him, their smiles turned cold, and a hint of disgust even vaguely appeared in the eyes of some people. Regarding their expressions, Xiaoyan could only gently sigh. It seemed that these people also knew Qing Lin's identity. Recalling his own time of decay when he was treated as a waste, he had also experienced this kind of treatment. Therefore, he felt a sense of powerless pity and a few parts of empathy for Qing Lin. However, at the border of the desert, mercenaries and snake people had an irreconcilable blood feud. Therefore, every time the mercenaries thought that the blood flowing in the girl in front of them was the dirty blood of the snake people, they couldn't help but reveal this kind of emotion. It was almost impossible to suppress it. This was the result of the conflict and mutual hatred between humans and snake people. Because people like Qing Lin carried the bloodline of both human and snake person, they had to endure discrimination and hatred from both sides. But no matter what was said, she was just an innocent girl after all. Along the way, following beside Xiaoyan, every time a gaze of disgust swept over her, Qing Lin's graceful figure would slightly tremble, and her lovely small face, which was originally so adored by countless people, was now filled with melancholy. Walking past a corner, Xiaoyan couldn't help but sigh. His footsteps slowly stopped. He tilted his head to look at her. Because of his sigh, Qinglin's expression suddenly became anxious. Remaining silent for a long time, Xiaoyan gently said to her, "Qinglin, don't pay too much attention to other people's gazes. You must remember that you do not live for others but you live for yourself." After speaking, Xiaoyan patted Qinglin's head and continued walking toward the distance. Hearing Xiaoyan's words, Qinglin stood frozen in place. After a long while, a strange light appeared on her delicate and lovely face. Her slender nose slightly wrinkled. On her small face, the 3 tiny blue-green dots in her blue eyes quietly appeared again, without a sound. "Thank you, young Master Xiaoyan." Softly murmuring, a smile filled with unusual allure flashed across Qinglin's small face. Then she ran to chase after the young man's back in front of her. Looking up, Xiaoyan merely frowned slightly, his expression showing a clear look of disdain. He slowly gripped the heavy Xian ruler in his hand and lightly stepped forward. His body instantly transitioned from stillness to movement. Everyone only saw his figure shoot out like lightning, swiftly rushing past the charging forms of the 2 snake people. Thud, thud. Xiaoyan's figure suddenly stopped after darting past. But the 2 snake people looked as if they had suffered an extremely serious blow. Their bodies trembled violently, and fresh blood spurted wildly from their mouths. Gripping the heavy Xian ruler in his hand, Xiaoyan lightly exhaled. He slightly licked his lips, his gaze briefly sweeping over the 2 snake people. After being hit by one blow from the heavy Xian ruler, their bodies flew over 10 meters away. Even if they weren't dead, they were seriously wounded. Hiss. From the moment Xiaoyan and the snake people switched positions to the snake people being severely wounded by the blow, everything happened within 10 seconds. The winner and loser were clearly determined. Watching Xiaoyan's display of strength, the entire group of mercenaries gaped, their faces filled with astonishment. Their surprised gazes stared intently at the young man's back. They couldn't believe that such a healthy physique concealed such terrifying power. This person's strength was truly frightening. Slightly parting her red lips, a woman who looked like a man, named Xuelon, Tuet Lam, watched Xiaoyan take down the 2 snake people like swatting flies and gasped. "Hee, Xuelon, are you all right?" From a sand dune, a man with an excited look ran down. He was extremely careful as he passed the snake people, running toward the mercenaries and smiling at the woman. "Dan Ziu Dan Tu. Didn't you go back to Mo City, Thachmak Ton, to find reinforcements? Why are you still here?" Looking at the man, the woman with the masculine build, called Xuelon, slightly raised her eyebrows and shouted loudly. Rebuked by the woman, Dan Zi could only give a wry smile. He pointed behind Xiaoyan and said, "Girl, isn't this the reinforcement?" "Him." Hearing this, Xuelon was stunned. She turned her head to look at Xiaoyan. Frowning, she asked cautiously, "He's not a member of our Mo Thai mercenary group. How did you manage to invite him? Does he have any conditions attached?" "I don't know him either. I just happened to meet him earlier. I originally wanted to ask him to go to Mo City to help notify someone." Speaking here, Dan Zi's face showed a hint of embarrassment. "At first, he completely ignored me. It wasn't until I mentioned I was from the Mo Thai mercenary group that he suddenly became enthusiastic. He even gave me an antidote pill to heal my injuries. Could it be that he knows someone in our Mo Thai mercenary group?" Xuelon gently wiped the sweat from her forehead with her small arm. The gesture, while casual, carried a certain allure that made the lustful gaze of a nearby snake person light up. "Did you really never hear the leaders mention knowing such a young powerhouse? Judging by the strength he just displayed, he's probably at least an 8-star Do practitioner or higher." Xuelon frowned, asking doubtfully. "I don't know either." Danzi shook his head with a wry smile and said, but I don't think he has any ill intentions. Otherwise, why would he risk coming here to save us? AI. Whether he can save us or not is another matter. This time, within the Snake People's group, there are 3 9-star Dou practitioners. In the end, I'm afraid he won't be able to save everyone. He shouldn't have gotten involved. Xuelan shook her head, saying with some worry. Hearing this, Danzi was stunned. He smiled awkwardly and said, I think he should be able to handle it. After all, I told him about the snake people's true strength. If he wasn't confident, why would he still come? Are you trying to tell me he's a Dou master? Xuelan shook her long, beautiful hair, saying with some helplessness. Well. Danzi moved his mouth but couldn't utter a word. Although he had some regard for Xiaoyan's strength, it was impossible for him to be a Dou master. He was barely around 20 years old. A Dou master under 20. How could that be possible? I hope he is confident. Danzi shook his head with a wry smile, only able to comfort himself. Xuelan frowned, pondering for a while. In the end, she could only shake her head spiritlessly. In this situation, they could only rely on the young man's unexpected performance. Seeing Xiaoyan easily inflict heavy injuries on 2 of his subordinates, the triangular eyes of the snake person leader slightly contracted. Red light flickered and he said indifferently, Human, offending our snake people in the Tiger Desert is not a wise choice. Xiaoyan smiled calmly, gripping the heavy ruler in his hand, and didn't bother to reply. If you know what's good for you, I advise you to leave now. I can overlook your mistake just now. The snake person leader's eyes flashed with a hint of malice. However, his words revealed a sense of caution and a hint of cruelty. Clearly, Xiaoyan's earlier display had made him wary. I apologize. Xiaoyan smiled, slightly shaking his head. The words were simple, but the determined tone left no room for negotiation. You seek death. Rejected by Xiaoyan, a killing intent flashed on the snake person leader's face. He waved his hand and said menacingly, advance together, kill him. Capture the woman alive, bring her back for a good time. Hiss. Hearing the leader's command, the surrounding snake people hesitated for a moment. They then flicked their snake tongues, gripped the sharp snake spears in their hands, surrounded Xiaoyan, and attacked. The injured stay back, the rest follow me and charge. Looking at the snake people preparing to attack, Xuelan's eyebrows stood erect behind him. She waved her hand and shouted loudly. No need. Just stand there and wait. It'll keep you from getting in the way. Hearing the commotion behind him, Xiaoyan frowned and turned his head to say helplessly. You. Hearing this, Xuelan, who was about to rush forward with her weapon, instantly froze her steps. Her lips curled. It was the first time she had been looked down upon by someone. Just as she was about to lash out, she suddenly remembered that the person before her was their only reinforcement. She had no choice but to stomp her foot in anger, then glared fiercely at Xiaoyan. Crossing her arms in front of her chest, she took a step back, looking coldly at Xiaoyan. She muttered to herself, brat, all show and no substance. However, Xuelan's cold, indifferent expression did not last long. It was soon slowly replaced by a look of shock. Naturally, all the mercenaries behind her were equally terrified. Not far from everyone, the young man stood straight, gripping the heavy ruler in his hand. After a moment of silence, a faint violet douqi slowly enveloped his entire body. The douqi was slightly thicker in front of him. A violet flame flickered around him, occasionally flaring up, looking somewhat strange. Hiss. Looking at the young man's body enveloped in the violet energy, everyone present sucked in a sharp breath. This douqi armor. Is he really a Dou master? Shui Lan's beautiful eyes widened. She stared intently at the person's back, which was covered in the violet dou qi, her face full of confident excitement. Everyone merely looked at each other, speechless. Truly, a monster. At that age, he's already reached the strength of a Dou master. You must know, the two leaders are only 5-star Dou masters this year. Dan Zi's mouth hung open. His face looked as if he had seen a ghost, and he mumbled. No wonder he dared to come alone. It turns out he really is a Dou master. One mercenary sighed, saying with a wry smile. His voice held a hint of admiration, and also a secret joy for their likely survival. Where exactly did this young man come from? I've never heard of such an unusual young man appearing in the surrounding cities. Shui Lan frowned and said. I don't know. Regarding this question, everyone around simultaneously shook their heads. Seeing this, Shui Lan also sighed helplessly, saying with a wry smile, forget it. Regardless of his background, it seems he is our savior and good fortune today. When Xiao Yan brought out the Dou Qi armor, the opposing snake people were extremely flustered. It seemed they also understood what the Dou Qi armor represented. Dou master. That was a completely different level, incomparable to Dou practitioners. Without special Dou skills or cultivation methods as trump cards, one basically couldn't fight against a person of this strength. And high-level Dou skills and cultivation methods, could anyone possess them? And the snake people were even less likely to have them. If so, this was a battle of utterly uneven strength. Having brought out the Dou Qi armor, Xiao Yan lightly exhaled. He clenched the heavy Xian ruler in his hand. Looking at the frightened snake people opposite him, a cold smile flashed at the corner of his mouth. He stomped fiercely on the ground. Following an explosion, Xiao Yan's body slightly dipped and then rapidly bounced up. Thud. Like a flash of lightning, Xiao Yan suddenly appeared in front of a 9-star Dou practitioner snake person. Looking at him coldly, the heavy ruler in his hand carried a powerful force, savagely slamming into the opponent's chest. A small thump sound rang out. The snake person's eyes widened and then fresh blood mixed with crushed internal organs spewed out. Simultaneously, his body was shot out like a cannonball, finally falling onto the sand dune far away. In an instant, the 9-star Dou practitioner snake person didn't even have time to activate a Dou skill. He truly courted death by meeting Xiao Yan's deadly attack. From this, it could be seen how easy it was for Xiao Yan's strength to deal with a Dou practitioner. Having killed a 9-star Dou practitioner snake person in the blink of an eye, Xiao Yan's figure quickly changed direction, turning toward a few other snake people with strength around 4 to 5-star Dou practitioner. The heavy ruler in his hand was now almost like the Grim Reaper's scythe, striking the terrified, fleeing snake people until they spat blood and were sent flying far away. Seeing that this battle was merely a solo performance by Xiao Yan, Shui Lan and the mercenaries were wide-eyed and dumbfounded. A single Dou master easily killing the opponent, completely disintegrating their formation. No matter what, the opponent had 3 9-star Dou practitioners, but one was killed in an instant. Killing a 9-star Dou practitioner was completely different from killing a few ordinary snake people. Looking at each other with wide eyes and slack jaws, everyone could only sigh and shake their heads. This person's strength seemed to be far stronger than an ordinary Dou master. Seeing their side suffer heavy casualties in such a short time, the snake person leader's eyes turned bloodshot. He and the remaining 9-star Dou practitioner snake person exchanged a glance. A sinister glare flashed on their faces. Gripping the sharp snake spears in their hands, their snake tails twitched strangely on the sand. The two adopted a cross formation and charged aggressively toward Xiao Yan. Looking at the two's smooth coordination, they had clearly undergone long-term training. The two eerie snake spears probed forward. At the same time, a red color flickered faintly on the spears, clearly indicating that the weapons were poisoned. The heavy ruler in his hand sent the last snake person retreating. Feeling the dense force coming from behind, Xiaoyan brought the heavy ruler backward. The sound of clashing weapons rang out, blocking the eerie attack of the two snake spears. Poof! Seeing their attack blocked, the two snake people suddenly opened their mouths almost in unison. Two streaks of vile, faint green gas rapidly spat out toward Xiaoyan. Be careful of the snake. Venom. Seeing the two snake people's movements, Xuelan's face changed drastically, and she quickly shouted. Hearing Xuelan's shout, the douqi armor outside Xiaoyan's body rapidly activated. It then quickly enveloped Xiaoyan's entire body. The green poisonous gas, upon contact with the violet flame armor, was instantly burned into nothingness, gradually dissipating in the air. Indifferently neutralizing the poisonous gas attack, Xiaoyan's foot suddenly turned a step. His figure instantly appeared in front of the snake person leader. He quickly raised the heavy ruler in his hand and then savagely slammed it down onto the leader's head. Seeing Xiaoyan suddenly penetrate the poisonous gas and attack at close range, the snake person leader's face turned ashen. In the face of imminent danger, his snake tail suddenly swayed strangely. With a peculiar sound, his body instantly moved backward a few feet like a slithering snake, narrowly avoiding Xiaoyan's fatal attack. After escaping Xiaoyan's attack, the snake person leader still felt a sense of danger. His snake tail rapidly swayed, and his body swiftly retreated backward. But just as he retreated for a few seconds, a strange suction force shot out from Xiaoyan's palm. Instantly, the unprepared snake person leader was sucked and flew toward Xiaoyan. The story you are reading is sourced from website name. Looking at the terrified expression of the snake person leader flying toward him, Xiaoyan sneered. His foot stomped on the ground again. His body shot up like a diving eagle, then suddenly appeared above the snake person's head. The heavy ruler in his hand loudly slammed down. Thud. Blood mixed with brain matter flew down from midair. His body rapidly fell. It then sank into the sand pit, and after a moment, his body gradually disappeared. Seeing their leader killed, the last 9-star Dou practitioner snake person's face was filled with fear. He let out a few sharp cries from his mouth, then blocked with his snake tail, and his body rapidly fled toward the depths of the desert. Having dealt with the snake person leader, Xiaoyan's body spun mid-air. Following the centrifugal force, the heavy ruler violently left his hand, shooting toward the fleeing snake person. Poof shui! The heavy ruler streaked across the sky like lightning, quickly catching up to the snake person. It finally pierced through the area of his neck, and carrying dark red blood, plunged deeply into the golden sand, leaving only the handle exposed. Stepping on the sand, Xiaoyan's foot sank half a foot deep. He panted for a moment, then slowly pulled his foot out and walked toward the heavy Xian ruler. He gripped the handle and pulled it up. Wiping the blood from the heavy Xian ruler, Xiaoyan casually placed it on his back. He then slowly walked toward the astonished, petrified mercenaries. Hey, are you all right? Walking closer and standing in front of the attractive woman, Xiaoyan asked with a smile. No. I'm all right. Xuelan's beautiful eyes looked at the shirtless Xiaoyan. Her expression held no shyness. In this desert, women were relatively open, and she often mingled among the mercenaries, naturally lacking the gentle, shy demeanor of typical young ladies. Looking at the bare-chested men, she couldn't help but smile with a slight blush. You. Xuelan opened her eyes wide, then looked at Xiaoyan and smiled. Regardless of your motive, I still want to thank you. Otherwise, we would have been done for. My name is Xuelan. I am a squad leader, and my squad belongs to the Mo Tai mercenary group. I am Xiaoyan. Xiaoyan smiled and nodded. Xiaoyan. That sounds somewhat familiar. Where have I heard it before? Hearing the name, Xuelon slightly frowned. She thought for a while but still couldn't recall, so she could only helplessly shake her head. She looked up at Xiaoyan and smiled. What are your plans next? How about I invite you to make a trip to Mo City? Our Mo Thai mercenary group is clear about favors and grudges. You helped us, and we will repay this kindness when we have the chance. Mo City isn't far from here, about half an hour's journey. We should be able to get there. It won't take up much of your time. As if afraid Xiaoyan would refuse, Xuelon quickly added. Hearing this, Xiaoyan nodded with a smile. If he went to Mo City, he naturally wanted to meet his two older brothers, whom he hadn't seen for many years. Although they had been busy with their own ventures and rarely returned to the clan in recent years, the bond of brotherhood from their youth remained. This made Xiaoyan miss them greatly. In the Xiao clan, besides his father and Suna, only his two older brothers genuinely cared for him. I wonder how Suna is doing now. A year has passed. The image of the girl in cyan clothes suddenly appeared in Xiaoyan's mind without warning, her gentle smile making Xiaoyan's spirit tremble. A year had passed, with the majority of the time spent in arduous training. Reflecting now, Xiaoyan finally tasted the feeling of longing. Slowly breathing out, Xiaoyan touched his face, recalling the girl's small, delicate figure and gentle demeanor. This surged a fierce desire within Xiaoyan to immediately end his arduous training and rush back to the Jianan Academy. The thought had barely surfaced when it startled Xiaoyan. He violently shook his head, forcefully suppressing it deep in his heart. That girl's secrets were truly too numerous. If his strength didn't increase, he truly feared he would feel somewhat inferior in front of her. Having been out for experience for so long, Xiaoyan understood more and more the preciousness of profound tear cultivation methods. He remembered that Suna had casually given him a high-level profound tear cultivation method. From this, Xiaoyan understood her highly mysterious identity. However, regarding Suna's cultivation speed, Xiaoyan also knew it was fast. He wondered what level she had reached in this 1 year. Perhaps even higher than his own. I wonder how she is doing at Jianan Academy. But with Suna's appearance and temperament, I'm afraid the number of suitors isn't small. But with her cold indifference, Suna doesn't care about anything. No man should be capable of moving her heart. Rubbing his nose, Xiaoyan smiled wryly. Every time he thought of these issues, he felt somewhat lucky. Lucky that his impulsive, inexplicable action back then had won her affection. But thank goodness. When I was a child, I only wanted to test whether Doqi truly existed or not. Back then, how could I have known how to be caring and attentive? Why did I persist for so many years? Could it be that I truly had no ulterior motives towards Suna back then? How could that be? A series of inexplicable questions suddenly appeared in his mind, causing Xiaoyan to mumble distractedly. Xuelon tilted her head to look at the person beside her, who had suddenly fallen silent, and whose expression kept changing. She couldn't help but be somewhat surprised. After a moment, she lightly nudged him. Hey! Are you all right? You haven't been poisoned, have you? Ah? Oh. Ah, I apologize, I was slightly distracted. I'm fine. Startled from his thoughts, Xiaoyan was stunned. Seeing everyone staring at him, he couldn't help but shake his head apologetically. If it's no trouble, shall we set off back to Mo City now? Xuelon tilted her head and asked Xiaoyan. Ah, agreed. Xiaoyan nodded with a smile. Fei Gao, bring the carriage over. Seeing Xiaoyan nod, Xuelon turned and waved, instructing a mercenary. Understood. The mercenary nodded with a smile, then quickly went to a sand dune not far away, from where he pulled out a carriage. As the carriage was pulled over, Xiaoyan realized that tied to the back of the carriage were the corpses of two first-tier magical beasts. Seeing the fresh blood still undried on them, they were likely the spoils of Xuelan's group. The carriage used in the desert was not large. Furthermore, since it was already loaded with the magical beast corpses, it was clearly impossible to use it for transport. You take these things back to Xianxia city first. And report everything here to the leader. Xuelan waved her hand and instructed the mercenary driving the carriage. Good. I believe the leader will be very happy to meet this new friend. The mercenary smiled amiably at Xiaoyan, then kicked the horse's rear, and carrying the spoils, quickly ran toward Xianxia city. Watching the carriage quickly disappear from sight, Xiaoyan smiled. He casually took out a set of clothes from his storage ring and put them on. He quickly walked in the direction the carriage had gone. Seeing Xiaoyan move, Xuelan also quickly urged everyone to follow. Captain, don't you feel that Xiaoyan and the two leaders look somewhat similar? Staring intently at Xiaoyan's back, Danzi suddenly spoke up. Xuelan was stunned. Upon hearing this, her eyes looked at Xiaoyan's back. A moment later, she suddenly remembered, saying, I think I heard the leaders mention that they have a younger brother. I also remember that. It's just that, how could that kid's strength have reached the Dou practitioner level? The leader's younger brother is also named Xiaoyan. Xuelan blinked her long, slender eyelashes. Her fragrant tongue licked her red lips. She recalled the events that had just concluded. After a moment, the smile on her face was slowly replaced by an expression of astonishment. On the way back to Xianxia city, in order to confirm Xiaoyan's identity, Xuelan intentionally made a few feigned, unintentional inquiries, but each time, Xiaoyan vaguely answered with generalities. In return, she could only helplessly glare at him a few times and let it go. However, even though Xiaoyan hadn't personally admitted it, after Xuelan carefully scrutinized his appearance, she finally somewhat confirmed in her heart that the Dou master level young man before her was absolutely the same person as the little brother, Xiaoyan, whose cultivation state was somewhat strange as recounted by Xiao Ding and Xiao Li. After confirming Xiaoyan's identity in her heart, the way Xuelan looked at Xiaoyan had less caution and more warmth and smiles. Walking and chatting happily the entire way, a large city structure, vaguely visible, soon appeared in the distance on the eastern side of the Tager Desert. Seeing Xianxia city not far away, not only did Xuelan's group let out a sigh of relief, but even Xiaoyan's face showed a few more traces of a smile. Walking and arduously training in the desert for 10 days had truly exhausted his spirit. Now that he could have a place to rest, he was naturally a bit excited. Amidst everyone's joyful sounds, Xiaoyan's group slowly walked toward the city gate, and then entered one by one. The city in the desert was somewhat simpler in structure compared to cities within the empire, yet it was much sturdier. The reason was likely due to its proximity to the Tager Desert. The defenses here were also much more rigorous than those within the empire. Heavily armed soldiers patrolling were casually visible throughout the city. After entering the city, Xiaoyan followed Xuelan's group toward the south side of the city. After turning a few corners, a large courtyard, almost comparable to the Xiao clan's manor in Wutan City, appeared in their sight. Above the courtyard, a flag gently swayed in the wind. The large characters Mo Tai mercenary group were painted on the upper part of the flag, vaguely revealing a sense of iron-blood rigidity and firm will. Outside the manor, several robust men, gripping weapons in their hands, stood straight. Their sharp eyes scanned the passers-by outside the gate. A faint scent of blood wafted from their bodies. They looked like true men of iron will who had risked their lives, a presence that ordinary mercenaries could hardly compare with. In Xianxia city, our Mo Tai mercenary group ranks third in strength. The Shaji mercenary group above us has a leader who is a great Dou master, so the Shaji mercenary group's position is unshakable. Other than the Shaji mercenary group, Only the Baofeng mercenary group in the entire Mo city can barely contend with us. Walking toward the manor, Xuelan smiled at Xiao Yan beside her. Her smile held a hint of pride. Xiao Yan smiled and nodded. He couldn't help but sigh in awe. In just a few short years, his eldest and second brothers had managed to establish a formidable force in a completely unfamiliar place. He truly had to admire them. He knew clearly in his heart that if it were him, he absolutely wouldn't have been able to achieve such success. Big brother has always been resourceful. Even my father praised him endlessly. Second brother is cautious and ruthless. He handles matters tactfully, with a cruel streak. Their combined efforts, coupled with their excellent cultivation, talent, truly make them a perfect pair of partners. No wonder they achieved such success. Recalling his father's past praises for his two older brothers, Xiao Yan couldn't help but smile slightly. In his heart, Xuelan, are you all right? I heard the returning mercenaries say you were attacked by the snake people. Entering the manor, a burly man at the entrance greeted them, smiling at Xuelan. I'm fine. Waving her hand casually, Xuelan asked with a smile, are the two leaders here? Yes, they're both inside. The burly man smiled and nodded. His eyes swept over Xiao Yan on the side, finally stopping at his face. He couldn't help but smile. Ever since he learned this little brother's name, the two leaders have been so excited they couldn't sit still. Ha ha. It's rare to see the leaders, who usually claim to be calm and steady, lose their composure like this. Xiao Yan smiled. A warmth also surged in his heart. He nodded in greeting to the friendly burly man. He then followed Xuelan, who was covering her mouth and chuckling, into the courtyard. Following behind Xuelan, passing through a few small paths. Along the way they met quite a few members of the Mo Thai mercenary group. After seeing Xiao Yan, an astonished look flashed across their faces. They then began to whisper amongst themselves. Ah ha! The two leaders often mention you. It seems the mercenary I sent back to report earlier already spread the word about you. Looking at the surrounding mercenaries' expressions, Xuelan tilted her head and smiled faintly. Giving a wry smile, Xiao Yan nodded. It seemed she had guessed his relationship with his two older brothers. After following Xuelan around another small path, a wide-open hall appeared before them. Standing outside the hall, Xiao Yan heard two familiar male voices coming from inside. His nose suddenly felt a little raw. Unlike the other members of the Xiao clan, Xiao Ding and Xiao Li were his true blood brothers in this world. No matter how calm Xiao Yan's temperament was, the bond of flesh and blood flowing within him still caused him to feel a bit emotional and flustered. Taking a deep breath, Xiao Yan smiled apologetically at Xuelan on the side, then slowly approached the main door. Just as he was about to push the door open, the door creaked and was pulled open. The door opened and a young man whose face bore some resemblance to Xiao Yan suddenly appeared. The young man was dressed in a mercenary outfit. His body was tall and straight, appearing strong and vigorous. His dark eyes held a hint of laziness and ruthlessness. A hint of a cynical smile graced his face, but beneath this smile, a hint of viciousness, like a fierce wolf, was vaguely hidden. Clearly, although the young man looked approachable, he was definitely the type of person who wouldn't bother others unless provoked, but if provoked, he would ruthlessly retaliate. Even if it meant fighting to the death. The young man who opened the door looked at the boy who suddenly appeared before him, slightly startled. Then, his body suddenly stiffened. The hint of viciousness hidden beneath the cynical smile on his face instantly melted away, replaced by a rare, bright, heartfelt, warm smile that bloomed on the young man's face. Looking at the young man's warm smile, Xiao Yan's nose felt slightly red. His eyes couldn't help but become a little moist. In the clan before, even when he was in decline, like a cripple, the young man before him was still careful to protect his remaining dignity. Like a fierce wolf, he would bite any clan member who dared to mock him until they were black and blue all over. After the incident, he would still come over bearing the injuries from the clan's punishment, smiling warmly to comfort his own disheartened spirit. Second brother. Wiping his eyes with the back of his hand, Xiaoyan stared intently at the young man before him, calling out in a trembling voice. Ah! Ha ha! Little Yanzi, Vim too, you actually found your way here. Ha ha! Looking at the young man grinned foolishly a few times, then quickly stepped forward and fiercely embraced Xiaoyan. He heavily patted his shoulder, his voice equally filled with excitement and joy. Little Yanzi. Hearing the affectionate childhood nickname, made Xiaoyan smile faintly. He subtly wiped away the moisture in his eyes. He said with a wry smile. Second brother, are you trying to beat me to death? Little fellow, not bad, eh? Did you manage to resolve the problem with your strange physique? Xiaoli laughed and released Xiaoyan. He patted his shoulder, his eyes sweeping over his body, saying with both surprise and joy. Xiaoyan smiled and nodded. Hurry up, go see Big Brother first. He's been waiting for you for quite some time now. With that, Xiaoli casually slung his arm over Xiaoyan's shoulder. Without even greeting Xuelon, who was standing on the side, he turned and rushed into the hall. Walking up to the front of the hall, Xiaoyan's eyes turned toward the young man sitting at the head seat. The young man, clad in a white robe, was now smiling as he watched Xiaoyan enter. His eyes, brighter than those of ordinary people, revealed a few hints of astuteness and undetectable shrewdness. Little Yanzi, it's been a few years. You've truly grown up. The white-robed young man slowly stood up. Looking at the young man whose height was almost comparable to Xiaoli's, a hint of affection and tenderness flashed in his eyes, and he said with a smile. Big brother. Xiaoyan took a deep breath, suppressing the emotion in his heart. His expression also gradually became as calm as the white-robed young man's. He smiled and said, Big brother is also becoming increasingly handsome and elegant. Seeing that Xiaoyan had unexpectedly managed to easily suppress his emotions, a hint of surprise clearly flashed across the white-robed young man's face. He sighed and nodded, Little fellow, it seems that even though you left after us, you've experienced quite a bit. Such determination and composure. Perhaps even your second brother is inferior. Although many things were unpleasant, I didn't encounter the kind of situation where I truly couldn't cope, couldn't move forward. Xiaoyan spread his hands and said with a smile. Ah, seeing your current state, you are naturally doing well. Your second brother always resented me for not bringing you along before, but during this period of travel in the Jiama Empire, we almost died several times. If we had brought you along, it would have been detrimental to you. Staying in the clan, at least father could look after you. Xiao Ding said with a smile. All right. It's rare for us to meet. Let's not talk about those unhappy things from the past. Fortunately, nothing happened to little Yanzi. Otherwise, when we return later, we'd definitely have to properly teach that little bastard a lesson. Waving his hand, Xiaoli said. Let's not mention the past anymore. Xiao Ding smiled. His gaze turned to Xiaoyan, and he smiled again. Little fellow, the mercenary who returned reported that your strength seems to be at the Dou master level. Hearing this, Xiaoli on the side also looked at Xiaoyan with astonishment. He remembered that when they left, Xiaoyan was still stuck at 3 or 4 Duan Dou Qi. How? In just a short span of 3 or 4 years, was he almost catching up to the two of them? I only advanced to Dou master a while ago during my travels. Unbelievable. Truly remarkable. This cultivation speed, even your fastest time when you were a child, is inferior, isn't it? Seeing Xiaoyan nod, Xiao Ding and Xiao Li couldn't help but exclaim in awe. Ah ha! I couldn't afford not to cultivate diligently. After all, the 3-year agreement is almost here. Xiaoyan shrugged, saying with a teasing smile. The 3-year agreement? Xiao Ding and Xiao Li were stunned. A moment later, the smile on Xiao Li's face slowly receded, and he said with a vicious tone, I heard that Nalan Yen Ran of the Nalan clan truly came to the clan to force father to annul the engagement. They truly are pushing it too far. Xiao Ding said with a faint smile. His smile revealed a hint of coldness. With the Mo Tai mercenary group's current strength, it was indeed difficult to contend with the Cloud Mist sect. However, he was a person who had always understood forbearance. Having fought for so many years outside, his level of forbearance had reached the pinnacle. Here in Mo City, the names of the shrewd Xiao Ding and the ruthless Xiao Li were enough to make their opponents lose sleep and appetite. Ha ha! I will handle this matter myself. Big brother and second brother, just focus on developing your forces. Who knows, someday I might offend some important figure, and I'll have to rely on you two to protect my life. Xiao Yan shook his head, saying with a teasing smile. Xiao Ding and Xiao Li exchanged a look. A gentle smile appeared on their faces, and they said softly, no matter what happens in the future, just remember that we are blood brothers. When we first established the Mo Tai mercenary group, your second brother and I planned to build a safe haven for your future. But looking at your current situation, it seems you no longer need our protection. Xiao Yan chuckled, his smile filled with emotion. Chapter 186. Young master, hurry up and get out of bed. Early in the morning, Qinglin placed her hands on her small waist and shouted softly. Her delicate little face looked with a hint of helplessness at the lump of quilt on the bed that was making the sound of Xiao Yan's snoring. Just as Qinglin was noisily calling, Xiao Yan groggily opened his eyes. He tried hard to open his eyes, reluctantly lifted himself up, and looked at Qinglin's small pouting mouth next to him with a wry smile. He sighed and had to abandon the idea of continuing to be lazy in bed. He let Qinglin's small, tender hands gently wait on him, change his clothes, and then quickly put them on. Young master, you mustn't blame Qinglin for disturbing your sweet dream. Today is the Mo Tai mercenary group's quarterly assessment, and it's also the most lively time in the mercenary group once every 3 months. You were the one who reminded Qinglin last night that I must wake you up on time. Otherwise, when Qinglin spoke up to this point, a faint blush appeared on her delicate small face, and she said in a barely audible low voice. Otherwise, Qinglin's backside would be in trouble. DG, I'm fainting. Cough. Early morning, right after getting out of bed, was the time when a man's desires were at their peak. Although Qinglin in front of him was only 13 or 14 years old, perhaps because of the dual bloodline of human and snake person, her exquisite and graceful figure, with the areas that should be concave being concave and the areas that should be plump being plump and the parts that should be slender being delicate, all these factors, combined with her age, created a somewhat strange but fatally attractive allure to ordinary people. Although Xiao Yan didn't have that kind of preference, a surge of impulse did arise in his heart at this moment. However, fortunately, he quickly suppressed that impulse. Otherwise, wouldn't he lose face to death? Qinglin's pair of soft small hands served Xiao Yan to his extreme satisfaction. Stretching his tired back, he said teasingly with a smile, this kind of life is truly that of a young master. If I have you accompanying me in close personal service in the future, wouldn't I be able to return to my previous life? Hearing this, Qinglin felt a sweetness in her heart. After several days of getting along, the relationship between her and Xiao Yan was also becoming increasingly friendly. And because Xiao Yan was gentle toward her, it also made Qing Lin extremely happy to serve him. If young master is willing, Qing Lin can always follow by your side as a maid. Her small hand smoothed the folds on Xiao Yan's sleeve, and Qing Lin said in a low voice, "Haha, I truly want that, but I can only stay with you here for about 10 days. After 10 days, I still have to continue entering the desert for cultivation. In that kind of environment, wouldn't it just be inviting hardship for a little girl like you to follow by my side? Don't worry. Before I leave, I will definitely instruct my big brothers to take good care of you." Xiao Yan gently stroked Qing Lin's head, and said with a smile. Hearing Xiao Yan say this, a hint of disappointment flashed in Qing Lin's lowered blue-green pupils. However, a moment later, she quickly forced a smile and said, "All right. Young master, let's go. The assessment has probably already begun." Smiling and nodding, Xiao Yan tightly secured the black heavy ruler on his back. Then he took a step toward the outer room. And the clever little Qing Lin took a swift step to open the room door. Then she turned back and gave Xiao Yan an adorable smile. The so-called assessment was the Mo Thai mercenary group's quarterly strength inspection. The purpose of this kind of test was to encourage the members to diligently cultivate. Because usually, as long as one performed excellently in the assessment, they could gain the qualification to form a small team of their own. And thus they could be promoted to a captain. In order to gain this qualification, the atmosphere of diligence and ambition within the Mo Thai mercenary group was relatively high. The strength of the members in this kind of competition, the speed of development was also slightly faster than other mercenary groups. And this was one of the reasons why the members of the Mo Thai mercenary group were considered superior to other mercenary groups in Mo City by the populace. Xiao Yan also somewhat agreed with this competitive assessment. And the person who proposed this kind of competition was, as Xiao Yan expected, his big brother, Xiao Ding, who always had a very flexible mind. Until now, this originally somewhat flawed assessment had gradually been perfected. The results now being achieved were also becoming increasingly obvious. Walking through the mercenary group's compound, they also encountered some people who were clumsily rushing out of bed. Everyone saw each other. They smiled and greeted each other. Then a group of them began frantically restrained, although their attitude toward her was still indifferent. At least they were no longer verbally abusive as before. Xiao Yan had no intention of participating in the test, so he didn't need to rush like them. He chatted and laughed with Qing Lin, slowly walking into the backyard. By the time the two arrived at the training ground, a heated battle atmosphere was already rising toward the sky. On the ground were over 100 people in a chaotic brawl. Below the arena, everyone was shouting with excited expressions. In some areas, there were even gambling tables set up, betting on which 5 people would last until the end. Standing on a huge rock outside the fighting arena, Xiao Yan also pulled Qing Lin up. The two stood side by side, eagerly looking at the battlefield atmosphere filling the training ground. Occasionally, they saw some extremely vulgar moves, and couldn't help but chuckle slightly. Young master, group leader Xiao Ding, and the others are up there. As Xiao Yan was watching the excitement, Qing Lin on the side suddenly pointed toward the high platform on the opposite side of the arena and smiled at Xiao Yan. Ah! Slightly startled, Xiao Yan looked up, and indeed saw Xiao Ding and Xiao Li sitting on the high platform. Next to them, there were still some people wearing Mo Thai attire serving them. Thinking of this, they must be the high-level personnel of the mercenary group. Xiao Yan had met them all over the past few days, so he could vaguely recognize them now. Just as Xiao Yan was looking intently, Xiao Ding, and Xiaoli also looked back. The three people looked at each other, and couldn't help but smile happily, raising their hands to greet each other. Just as Xiao Yan was about to retract his gaze, he suddenly saw Xiaoli make a hand gesture. He couldn't help but be stunned, his finger pointing into the arena, and then pointing at himself again. Seeing this, Xiaoli laughed loudly and nodded. He leaned down and said something to Xiao Ding on the side. Then he jumped off the high platform with a helpless expression, and stood steadily in the middle of the arena. Looking at Xiaoli's actions, Xiao Yan rolled his eyes helplessly, said something to Qinglin beside him, then his foot suddenly kicked the huge rock. Following a loud bang, his figure swiftly shot into the arena. His body executed a mid-air flip, and his 2 feet landed in the arena. Haha, little Yanzi, let me see how strong you, the little genius of our clan, have become after a few years. Xiao Li's voice, carrying Dou Qi, actually suppressed the surrounding noise of the training ground. Second group leader. Second group leader. Hearing Xiao Li's loud shout, the crowd around was only slightly surprised, then immediately shouted with excited expressions. Instantly, around the training ground, continuous, fervent cheers converged into a surging tide of sound, heading straight for the sky. Since second brother has the intention, this little brother naturally wouldn't dare to refuse. Slightly aroused by the surrounding fervent atmosphere, Xiao Yan's hand holding the black heavy ruler suddenly pulled it out with a clang. He held the heavy ruler tilted upwards, raised his head, and said with a courageous laugh. Source of the story. Triunful. Ha ha. Good. Seeing this, Xiaoli laughed loudly. His hand flipped over and a spear, straight as steel, appeared in his palm. He clenched his hand, and silver-colored Dou Qi suddenly rose and billowed from his body, finally manifesting outside his body, forming a layer of silver Dou Qi armor. I didn't think that after not seeing you for a few years, second brothers lightning attribute Dou Qi has become even purer, ah. His gaze swept over the silver Dou Qi armor on Xiao Li's body, and Xiao Yan couldn't help but shake his head. Xiao Li's Dou Qi was somewhat rare. It was a type of lightning attribute Dou Qi. This kind of Dou Qi not only had strong offensive power, but it also carried an additional paralyzing side effect, making it extremely troublesome to deal with in battle. Slowly letting out a breath, the purple flame Dou Qi inside Xiao Yan's body also circulated rapidly. After a moment, a purple Dou Qi armor rose, similarly enveloping Xiao Yan. Well done. Looking at Xiao Yan summoning the purple flame armor, Xiaoli couldn't help but sigh in admiration. Then he clenched his spear, and shouted loudly, let's begin. As Xiao Li's voice came out, Xiao Yan's body and his own moved almost simultaneously. Their feet stomped on the ground, and their figures shot out frantically. Looking at the two figures that almost tore apart the chaotic arena, the surrounding mercenaries instantly erupted in excitement. A battle between two Dou masters was a rare sight on normal days. Being able to witness and learn from it today, how could these people not feel excited? Young master, go for it. Standing on the huge rock, Qinglin's small face was slightly red, and she shouted clearly. Ha ha. Group leader. Who do you think has a greater chance of winning between second group leader and little brother Xiao Yan? On the high platform, Xuelan's eyes swept across the arena, and she asked with a charming smile. Hearing Xuelan's question, several other high-level personnel on the platform also turned their eyes toward Xiao Ding, the one who usually made decisions for the group's affairs. Being stared at by everyone, Xiao Ding casually picked up his teacup, lightly took a sip, his gaze sweeping toward the arena, and said with a long laugh. Second brother's current strength is at the 4-star Dou master level. With his speed, he will soon be able to reach the 5-star level. And little Yanzi's current strength has only just stepped into the Dou master level. Furthermore, second brother's lightning attribute Dou Qi is something you all have experienced. Although little Yanzi's purple flame Do Chi is something I can't quite see through, but who do you think has a greater chance of winning? A hint of cunning flashed in Xiao Ding's eyes, and he said with a smile. In that case, wouldn't second group leader definitely win? After all, they have a difference of several stars in strength. Hearing this, Xuelon couldn't help but pout, saying with some disappointment. She really wanted to see Xiao Li's embarrassed look. Chuckling slightly, Xiao Ding gently tapped the table with his finger. His gaze fixed on the young man enveloped by the purple flame Do Chi in the middle of the arena, and he said softly. If it were anyone else, it would indeed be true that they wouldn't have any chance of winning, but my little brother is not someone who can be judged by conventional wisdom. That little fellow has known how to hide himself since he was young. I don't think his strength is only what he is showing. Therefore, in this match, one cannot say. Little Yanzi might even have a greater chance of winning. Looking at the spacious arena, two figures, one silver and one purple, almost tore the chaotic and fervent arena into two long, empty paths. Wherever the two people passed, everyone moved aside, leaving a long, empty space. Clang! The clash of metal brought with it a clear sound. A fierce energy fluctuation erupted from the center of the plaza, instantly clearing the area within 10 meters of the two people, leaving an empty circle in the chaotic brawl. Xiao Yan tightly gripped the black heavy ruler. He looked up at the spear that stabbed over like a venomous snake. Arc-shaped silver lightning continuously jumped on the spear tip. He gently exhaled, and the heavy ruler in Xiao Yan's hand suddenly twisted, bringing out its broad surface. Clang! The spear tip directly struck the huge heavy ruler. The pressure carried by the heavy ruler bore down. The weak spear was instantly compressed into an unimaginably dangerous curve, which was extremely stimulating to the eyes. And the spear tip was almost touching Xiao Li's spear-wielding hand. Heh, this little fellow has quite a lot of strength. Seeing the first contact and taking a slight loss, Xiao Li couldn't help but laugh. Do Chi rapidly condensed on his palm, and then forcefully shot into the spear. A surge of electric current energy shot out along the spear, quickly transmitting into the heavy ruler. The electric current energy infiltrated the heavy ruler. Xiao Yan's hand gripping the black heavy ruler instantly trembled. The purple flame Do Chi in his body continued to circulate, quickly expelling the paralyzing energy from his body. Little Yanzi, once your second brother fights with someone, he doesn't care about kinship. Once in battle, it's all about full strength. You should be careful. In the instant Xiao Yan's hand trembled, Xiao Li chuckled. The spear in his hand strangely pulled a line. The spear tip created a burst of sparks on the heavy ruler. After drawing the line, it suddenly stabbed out violently. Lightning arc 3-segment dance. The spear just moved, and Xiao Li immediately shouted softly. Instantly, the electric current on the spear formed the shape of a 3-headed snake. It suddenly flashed. The arc-shaped electric blades intertwined and flashed with a sizzling sound, carrying a powerful energy that made people dare not underestimate it easily. Lightning arc 3-segment dance. Second group leader actually used the lightning arc 3-segment dance so quickly. Seeing Xiao Li's move, the arena immediately rang out with bursts of surprised sounds. This lightning arc 3-segment dance move could almost be said to be one of Xiao Li's killing moves. They hadn't expected him to use it so quickly after just a brief exchange. Could it be that he wanted a quick victory? Ha. It seems brother Xiao Yan might lose, Second group leaders. Lightning arc 3-segment dance is a profound tier low-grade Do skill, Furthermore, the lightning attribute Do Chi has an added effect. Even a 4-star Do master wouldn't dare to easily block it. And yet, after just a brief exchange, second group leader has already used it. It seems Brother Xiao Yan's strength is indeed extraordinary, ah. On the high platform. A high-level Mo Tai person couldn't help but say with a chuckle. This person. He really likes to bully people. Not only is his tier higher than little Brother Xiao Yan's, he actually still uses a profound tier do skill. Shui Lan pouted. She spoke with a hint of unfairness toward Xiao Yan, who was at a disadvantage. Ha ha. Second brother's lightning attribute Do Qi inherently belongs to the explosive thunder and lightning type of Do Qi. If the battle were to drag on, it would be disadvantageous to him instead. Therefore, no matter who he fights with, he always chooses the fastest way to decide the victor. Otherwise, once his momentum weakens, his situation will be very difficult to describe. Xiao Ding lightly shook his head. He said with a smile. Hearing this, everyone laughed. Helplessly. They could only silently pray in their hearts that Xiao Yan could withstand this wave of attack. In the arena. At the moment Xiao Li used the Do skill, Xiao Yan was also startled in shock. However, after more than a year of arduous cultivation, his composure was far greater than before. The next instant, his mind calmed down. Inside the Do Qi spiral in his body, a surge of purple flame Do Qi circulated out. Then it enveloped the heavy ruler to prevent Xiao Li's lightning attribute Do Qi from taking the opportunity to infiltrate his body and paralyze him. The pitch-black heavy ruler was encased in the purple flame. Xiao Yan finally used his full strength to chop down, creating a forceful pressure wave, violently clashing with the rapidly stabbing spear. Everyone around watched nervously. The heavy ruler and the spear suddenly collided in an instant. Instantly, following an energy explosion, the stone slabs where the two people stood were all cracked with dense fissures. Clang! As the spear tip struck the heavy ruler, an arc-shaped electric blade fiercely brandished its fangs and claws and struck the surface. The strong force contained within it suddenly sent the heavy ruler flying back. Furthermore, due to the corrosive nature of the arc-shaped electric blade, the purple flame Do Qi on the black heavy ruler was also quickly reduced by more than half in an instant. Heh heh. Successfully seeing Xiao Yan, who was holding the heavy ruler, quickly retreat a step, Xiao Li chuckled. He did not hold back at all. The spear quickly followed the retreating motion, and violently stabbed toward the retreating heavy ruler, not giving him any chance to counterattack. Clang! Another clear sound echoed. The purple flame Do Qi on the heavy ruler was finally completely dispersed. Clang! After dispersing the purple flame, Xiao Li's spear continued to stab out like lightning. At the same time, a final arc-shaped electric blade also violently shot out from the spear, and heavily struck the black heavy ruler. Following a somewhat loud sound, the heavy ruler in Xiao Yan's hand was actually sent flying by these three powerful forces, spinning more than 10 times in the air before plunging into the ground behind him. Little fellow, the battle is over. Gripping the spear tightly, Xiao Li said with a smile toward Xiao Yan. Hush! Seeing Xiao Yan disarmed, a chorus of sighs immediately rang out outside the arena. In a competition of this level, losing one's weapon basically meant 1 foot in defeat. Under normal circumstances, the outcome would likely be just that. However, for Xiao Yan, the situation was completely opposite. The black heavy ruler in Xiao Yan's hand could indeed increase his offensive power somewhat, but it was more of a constraint on Xiao Yan. Carrying the heavy ruler, Xiao Yan's speed was not only severely suppressed, but more importantly, the Do Qi in his body had to be fully mobilized to cope with this level of combat. But now that the heavy ruler was out of his hand, the last constraint on Xiao Yan's strength was completely removed. Freed from the constraint of the heavy ruler, Xiao Yan was finally at his peak state. Therefore, hearing Xiao Li's words, Xiao Yan only shrugged noncommittally. not necessarily, ah. Seeing Xiao Yan still calmly smiling, Xiaoli was slightly surprised. Then the spear in his hand swiftly stabbed toward Xiao Yan's shoulder. Explosive step. Xiao Yan's face brightened with a clear smile. Following a soft shout, his foot stomped hard on the ground. A surging sound of energy echoed. His body, almost in an instant, shot right next to Xiaoli. In the arena, seeing Xiao Yan's movement, everyone couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. Clearly, they were somewhat confused as to why Xiao Yan's normal speed could suddenly increase so terrifyingly, as if he had taken a medicinal pill. Xiao Yan's figure instantly closed in, causing a look of surprise to flash on Xiao Li's face. His hand tightly gripping the spear suddenly whipped it backward. The spear, clinging to his back, spun rapidly like a windmill. During the spin, arcs of electricity flashed within it. His toes lightly tapped the spear tip. Xiao Yan's figure once again shot backward, exceeding everyone's expectations. As he shot backward, Xiao Yan's hand suddenly opened and then clenched. Instantly, a fierce suction force powerfully erupted from his palm. Xiaoli, caught off guard not far away, felt his body sway. His spear, spinning like a windmill, was torn apart into a disorderly mess. The attack completely lost its original form. Due to the suction force emitted by his hand, Xiao Yan's retreating body suddenly stopped in a peculiar manner. He raised his head and smiled at Xiaoli, who was being pulled toward him. His foot once again stomped hard on the ground. Following an explosive sound, his figure shot out like lightning, appearing in front of Xiaoli. Second brother, the heavy ruler is not my true weapon. What I am most skilled at is close quarters combat. Their eyes were so close they almost touched. Xiao Yan suddenly chuckled softly. As Xiao Li's pupils slightly contracted, Xiao Yan's hand abruptly clenched into a fist. His body quickly used force to execute a half-turn in midair, and he very strangely ducked into Xiao Li's embrace. With his back to Xiao Li, Xiao Yan's elbow retracted and paused for just an instant. Then it struck down violently toward Xiao Li's chest, carrying a sharp, almost ear-tearing whistle. Sensing the terrifying force contained within Xiao Yan's elbow, Xiao Li's expression suddenly changed drastically. His right fist clenched tight against his chest. He suddenly struck down with a heavy, hammer-like punch. As Xiao Li's fist struck down, a dazzling circle of silver light suddenly diffused from his chest. It finally formed a small, almost solid silver shield, the size of half a washbasin. Half an inch away from his chest. Ha ha. Second brother is truly being pushed to his limits, ah. He even used his final life-saving move, the electric light silver shield. Looking at the small silver shield on Xiao Li's chest in the arena, Xiao Ding shook his head, and said with a light chuckle, I knew that little Yan Zi always has a trump card up his sleeve. Trying to judge his strength from the surface is truly an extremely unwise move. Xiao Ding's eyes glanced at the huge black heavy ruler in the arena, and said with a smile. Did everyone not notice that since he got rid of the heavy ruler, little Yan Zi's speed and power have almost exploded by 3 or 4 tiers? Hearing this, a look of surprise and awe also appeared on the faces of Shui Lan and the others. In the arena, Xiao Yan had also noticed the energy fluctuation behind him. However, his elbow, like a sharp point, still showed absolutely no reduction in force. The next instant, it heavily slammed onto the small silver shield. Boom! Following the explosive sound, everyone could see with the naked eye an invisible circle of force rippling out from between the two people. It abruptly diffused, slowly dissipating only more than 10 meters away. In the arena, Xiao Yan's body and Xiao Li's body both paused at this moment. Everyone could only see the small silver shield violently vibrating at the point of contact with the elbow. The rapid vibration gradually diffused. After a moment, it slowly stopped. And the two people's bodies also retreated, as if they had received an electric shock. Source of the story, Thien Full. Little fellow, I didn't think you possessed such profound bare-handed do skills. Heh, but there is still a significant gap in strength between you and me. Your power is still not enough to break through my electric light silver shield. As his body quickly retreated, Xiaoli suddenly said with a laugh. Ha. Not necessarily. Smiling calmly, Xiaoyan's hand suddenly clenched, and he softly shouted, "Explode!" Bang! Following Xiaoyan's voice, a very soft, resounding sound abruptly came from inside Xiaoli's body. And a moment after the sound came out, Xiaoli instantly looked like he was struck by lightning. Not only did his body tremble violently several times, but his complexion also suddenly turned slightly pale. His body continuously retreated. Every time Xiaoli's foot landed, it left a deep footprint on the ground. After retreating nearly 20 steps, Xiaoli finally stabilized his body. But at this moment, a figure abruptly appeared in front of him. A sharp spear tip stopped right at his chest. "Second brother, you underestimated me, ah." The spear tip pointed at Xiaoli. Xiaoyan smiled and said softly. Looking at the sudden reversal of the battle situation in just a few minutes in the arena, everyone around the plaza opened their eyes in surprise. It was very difficult to imagine that Xiaoli, who rarely had opponents within the group, would unexpectedly lose to Xiaoyan, who was 7 or 8 years younger than him. In a somewhat inexplicable manner. In the arena, Xiaoli looked at the spear tip at his chest. He was surprised for a long time before slowly recovering his senses. His gaze swept over the smiling Xiaoyan in front of him, and he couldn't help but shake his head and exclaim in awe, "Little fellow, I didn't expect this, ah. You actually hid your depths so well. With the strength you displayed. You don't seem like someone who is merely a normal one-star do master." Ha, just luck." Shaking his head with a smile, Xiaoyan took the spear, which was stuck in the ground, and then walked to the black heavy ruler not far away. Just as he was about to pick it up, Xiaoli stopped him with a smile. "Let me try. This ruler of yours seems to be a bit strange, ah." Xiaoli stared intently at the huge ruler on the ground and said with a long, interested laugh. "Eh?" Hearing this, Xiaoyan was slightly stunned, then smiled and nodded, stepping back a step, a hint of humor flashing in his eyes. "You are reading the story copied from Thien Full." Xiaoli rubbed his hands, slowly stood next to the black heavy ruler, flexed and extended his hand, and then tightly gripped the ruler's handle. He gently breathed out a sigh, and casually pulled on it. Following this slight movement, Xiaoli's expression slightly changed, and he let out a surprised sound. He discovered that after holding the black heavy ruler, the lightning do qi in his body, which originally circulated very quickly, suddenly became like a crawling tortoise. "Well done. It truly is a bit strange." Muttering in surprise, Xiaoli tensed his arm. A long, narrow vein popped up on his elbow. Clenching the black heavy ruler, Xiaoli's face slowly reddened, and he softly shouted, "Lift." As his voice ended, Xiaoli's trembling arm slowly lifted. Then he gripped it with both hands in front of him, and exerted force with both arms once again. This time, the look in his eyes toward Xiaoyan vaguely flashed with much more shock. You actually carried this thing on your back to fight with me earlier." Looking at Xiaoyan's smiling, handsome face, Xiaoli suddenly said, with a somewhat dry mouth, "Goodness, it was already impressive for a person to be able to move with this thing on their back. Yet Xiaoyan actually carried it on his back and fought many rounds with him. How could this not shock and awe Xiaoli?" Looking at Xiaoli's shocked appearance, Xiaoyan smiled, slightly nodded, took the black heavy ruler from him, and then casually placed it on his back. Xiaoli's eyes had been fixed intently on Xiaoyan's every movement. He found that when taking the black heavy ruler, Xiaoyan's hand only sank slightly, and that slight curve was corrected immediately in an instant. Looking at Xiaoyan's relaxed attitude, Xiaoli's mouth slightly opened. After a long while, he shook his head in awe and sighed, "Little fellow. You are very skilled." Ah! Did that Nailin Yenran have her eyes covered by dog shit? How many people as outstanding as my brother are there? How many can be found in this Jiama empire? She actually abandoned him. Xiaoyan smiled and spread his hands. At least Suna wouldn't be weaker than me. Suna. Ha ha. That little girl, ah. It's been many years since I went back. That girl must have grown up very fresh and juicy, right? You should know that when she was young, those young masters in Wuten City used to climb over the walls of the Xiao clan every day just to get a look at her. But she seemed very attached to you, didn't she? Heh heh. Hearing that elegant name, Xiaoli was stunned, and said with a hint of reminiscent laughter, recalling the girl's beautiful face and captivating figure in his mind. Xiaoyan also smiled slightly with a hint of emotion. He lightly patted the black heavy ruler, and said with a smile, "If I have the chance in the future, I'll bring her to see you all. But for now, I have something serious that I need big brother and second brother to help me with." "Oh? Something? No problem. Just speak. Even if it's beyond our capabilities. Second brother and big brother will give it our all." Hearing this, Xiaoli immediately waved his hand. He said with a chuckle. Chuckling softly, Xiaoyan gently nodded. In the spacious room, the three Xiaoyan brothers sat there. And Qinglin respectfully brought up 3 cups of green tea, and then obediently stood behind Xiaoyan. "Ha ha, little Yanzi has something to ask. Speak. Let big brother help you analyze it." Holding the teacup and taking a sip, Xiao Ding said with a smile toward Xiaoyan. Nodding with a smile, Xiaoyan pondered for a moment and said softly, "I came to the Tager Desert this time because I wanted to search for an item." "An item? What item?" Hearing this, Xiaoli asked with a slightly curious chuckle. "Heavenly flame." His finger gently tapped the table. Xiaoyan said in a low voice. As the 2 words heavenly flame were spoken, the room instantly became much quieter. Xiao Ding and Xiaoli glanced at each other and said in confusion, "Heavenly flame? That kind of item seems to be something only alchemists would need, right? What do you need it for?" Xiaoyan shrugged and said with a calm smile. "Because I am an alchemist." "Ah?" Hearing this, Xiao Ding and Xiaoli's faces froze. A moment later their eyebrows rose with ecstatic joy. "You are an alchemist?" "Ha ha, I was lucky enough to have the talent to become an alchemist. And I also met a mentor while I was in Wuten City, so." Xiaoyan said with a light chuckle. TSK. This little fellow is truly skilled. I didn't think our Xiao clan could actually produce an alchemist. Ha ha. Seeing Xiaoyan nod in confirmation, Xiao Ding and Xiaoli immediately laughed loudly. Their laughter contained a hint of envy and joy. Heavenly flame is truly a frighteningly rare item. Although we have been in Mo City for quite some time, we truly haven't heard anyone mention the whereabouts of a heavenly flame. Ah. After the joy subsided, Xiao Ding frowned and said helplessly. Shaking his head with a smile, Xiaoyan's finger gently flicked the storage ring. He took out the ancient parchment scroll from his hand, carefully spread it on the table, pointed his finger at a flame symbol, and said softly, "This is a map I made. At the location of this flame symbol, there should be a chance to find traces of a heavenly flame. But I am not familiar with the terrain around Mo City, so I can't locate the exact place with the flame symbol. Big brother, you have been in this area for quite some time. Do you know if there is any peculiar place around Mo City? Hearing this, Xiao Ding pulled the map over. His gaze roughly swept over the map, and he said in surprise, "A very good map. This kind of map I've never seen before, ah. It is indeed excessively detailed." Xiaoli nodded, frowned, and carefully observed the map. He quietly said, "This flame symbol location. It seems it should be in the eastern part of Mo City, right? To be more precise, perhaps the eastern area of Tiannan." Xiao Ding lightly nodded and said contemplatively, "But the eastern area of Mo City doesn't seem to have any overly peculiar places, ah. It truly doesn't. That area, I once led people to search there for a few days during a mission, and didn't find any strange place." Xiaoli also shook his head, and said helplessly. Seeing the two people shake their heads, a hint of disappointment flashed across Xiao Yan's face. He sighed. "It seems there should be no trace of the heavenly flame here." However, just as Xiao Yan was filled with disappointment, a gentle, scared voice suddenly rang out inside the room. Young master, the area east of Mo City seems to have something strange." Hearing this, Xiao Yan was first stunned, then suddenly turned his head, his fervent gaze staring intently at Qing Lin's small, clasped hands, and he said urgently, "You know. On the side." Xiao Ding and Xiaoli also turned their surprised gazes toward Qing Lin. Clearly, they were also unaware of the situation being stared at by the three people in the room. Qing Lin's delicate small face became even more timid. She stammered and said, I don't know if my senses are accurate. But half a year ago, I truly sensed a slight movement in the area east of Tiannan in Mo City." "How do you know? You don't seem to possess that kind of strength, do you?" Xiao Ding stroked his teacup and said with some suspicion. I don't know. Half a year ago, I sensed an extremely powerful aura appear outside Mo City. This aura is somewhat similar to the bloodline in my body, and that aura, even the group leader of the Shaji mercenary group, is much weaker than it." Qing Lin cautiously leaned close to Xiao Yan, and said in a low voice, "Oh." Hearing this, Xiao Ding and Xiaoli were slightly moved. The group leader of the Shaji mercenary group was a great Dou master, ah. Even he was much weaker than that mysterious aura. Then, wasn't the opponent at least a Dou King level strong expert? An aura similar to your bloodline? Could it be the Medusa Queen? After pondering for a moment, Xiaoli suddenly said with some shock, "With the Medusa Queen's strength, it wouldn't be difficult for her to destroy Mo City. Would it? Could this terrifying super expert have actually wandered around Mo City without them knowing?" The words Medusa Queen reached their ears, and Xiao Ding's face also changed slightly. Around the Tager Desert, this name was like the fame of the Pill King Guhi in the Jiama Empire. "I don't know." Qing Lin shook her head, and said softly, "I can only vaguely sense that half a year ago, she suddenly went to the eastern area of Mo City. She seemed to have stayed there for one night. During that night, the energy in the east was extremely violent, and I also know that when she left, she seemed to be injured." Hearing Qing Lin's words, Xiao Yan gently breathed out a sigh. His eyes narrowed, and he said in a low voice, "Can you pinpoint the exact location where she stayed?" "I should be able to. Although half a year has passed, the residual aura she left behind is truly too strong. I can rely on the bloodline in my body. I should be able to find that location." When she spoke of the bloodline, Qing Lin's small face clearly dimmed somewhat, but she still forced a smile and said, "If young master wants to go, Qing Lin will do her best to guide you." "Haha, thank you, Qing Lin. Let's go and take a look tomorrow." I hope the result won't disappoint me. Xiao Yan smiled and nodded and said softly. Vast desert, yellow sand ravaged. Qing Lin, are you sure it's this place? Xiao Yan looked with surprise at the flat patch of desert in front of him. The terrain here was extremely ordinary, without any features that could draw attention. This kind of flat sand was almost countless in the vast desert. It was very difficult for Xiao Yan to imagine that this inconspicuous place actually held traces of a heavenly flame. Behind Xiao Yan were Xiao Ding and Xiao Li. There were also dozens of elite members of the Mo Tai mercenary group. However, at this moment, they were all looking with suspicious eyes at Qing Lin, who was leading the way. For them, who had lived in Mo City for several years or even decades, this place was truly ordinary to the extreme. Furthermore, some of them had even passed through here many times on missions, but they had never felt that this place was any different from other places. Being stared at by everyone, Qing Lin was timid, but she still bravely stared at Xiao Yan and said softly, Young master, in my senses, the location where the anomaly occurred half a year ago is indeed here. Hearing this, Xiao Yan slightly furrowed his eyebrows and slowly took 2 steps forward. He stood on a small sand dune, looked around, and his face showed contemplation. There are no special structures or strange caves here. But Qing Lin doesn't seem to be lying. If it's not on the ground and not in the sky, then it might be here. Xiao Ding looked around, then suddenly crouched down. His hand scooped up a handful of sand, then slowly let it fall, and said with a light smile, Big brother means underground. Hearing this, Xiao Yan was slightly stunned, and said in surprise, It's naturally difficult. Digging randomly in the desert might end up burying yourself alive. But since that Medusa Queen could also go down, I guess there must be a hidden passage. Shaking his head with a laugh, Xiao Ding said with a smile. We happen to have an expert in our group who is somewhat proficient in surveying terrain. As long as we let them check it out, it shouldn't be difficult to find the passage to the underground. Hearing this, Xiao Yan breathed a sigh of relief, and said with a smile, Since that's the case, then we'll have to trouble them. Finding the passage is a small matter. But this place is not far from Mo City. Our large group openly investigating a hidden place. I think it will likely be discovered by other forces within Mo City. The nights in the Tager Desert are very short. If we only work at night, not only will it waste a lot of time, but we might also miss a less important area because of the darkness. In this Mo City, with the strength of our Mo Tai mercenary group, aside from the small forces we don't dare to provoke, there is the Shaji mercenary group. One cannot say they won't jump out and interfere. Xiao Ding shook his head. He frowned and said helplessly, Shaji mercenary group. Xiao Yan frowned. The Shaji mercenary group is the strongest force in Mo City, apart from the city lord's mansion. Although our Mo Tai mercenary group is not inferior in overall strength, they have a group leader, Sha Luo, who is a great Do master. You should understand the difference between a great Do master and a Do master. Therefore, normally, if there isn't a major issue, we usually won't provoke the Shaji mercenary group. But if we make a big show of searching this time, as long as it arouses their curiosity, under this kind of situation, they naturally won't be able to remain spectators. Xiaoli spoke up on the side with some helplessness. Hearing this, Xiao Yan smacked his lips. He pondered for a long time. He looked up at Xiao Ding and Xiaoli. He smiled and said, No worries. Big brother and second brother just need to have people search well. But please make sure not to leak any information about the heavenly flame. As for that Shaji mercenary group, if they really want to interfere, then let me handle it. Ha ha. Everyone here is a core member of the Mo Thai mercenary group. We are all brothers who have been through life and death together. Keeping secrets is absolutely no problem. Xiaoli patted his chest. But he still said with some worry, can you handle Sha Luo of the Shaji mercenary group? Your strength. Second brother, don't worry. If I say so, I naturally have confidence. You just need to send people to search for the passage. Xiao Yan said with a mysterious smile. Seeing Xiao Yan acting so mysteriously, Xiao Ding and Xiao Li could only nod helplessly. However, they had a feeling of trust in their hearts. After all, they knew that with Xiao Yan's personality, he would absolutely not joke about such matters. This little fellow. It's getting harder and harder to see through him. Muttering to himself, Xiao Ding and Xiao Li glanced at each other. They both saw the same feeling in the other's eyes. All right, in that case, Xuelon, you rush back to the Mo Thai mercenary group, and bring back the people who are proficient in surveying terrain. Try to find the passage within 1 day. Xiao Ding turned his head, and instructed Xuelon. Yes. Leave this to me. Smiling and nodding, Xuelon quickly turned around. She whistled softly. A camel ran over from somewhere. Her soft body jumped onto the camel's back. Xuelon controlled it, making a path of dust run toward Mo City. Watching Xuelon gradually disappear from sight, Xiao Yan squatted down. He picked up a handful of hot sand with his hand, and muttered softly, Heavenly Flame. Is it really down there? Not long after Xuelon returned. She brought back all the experts in surveying terrain from the Mo Thai mercenary group. Half an hour later, they were standing in front of Xiao Yan. Xiao Ding assigned over 40 areas that needed to be surveyed. They determined the areas and then began the surveying operation. As the largest force in Mo City, their every move was naturally watched by countless eyes. Therefore, not long after Xuelon left, some mercenaries arrived in their area to investigate. They looked confusedly at the members of the Mo Thai mercenary group surveying the area. The possibility of a Heavenly Flame being outside Mo City had been tightly sealed as a secret by Xiao Ding and Xiao Yan when they gathered their personnel earlier. Therefore, the mercenaries were inadvertently kept in the dark. As the surveying progressed, the number of onlookers increased. Even though Xiao Ding told everyone outside that the Mo Thai mercenary group was hunting a Tier 3 magical beast, it still couldn't stop the crowd. They continued to gather in increasing numbers. Standing on a sand dune, Xiao Ding looked at the rapidly growing crowd. He smiled bitterly in helplessness and shook his head. At this rate, the Shaji mercenary group will send people here in less than half an hour. Xiao Li's face was faintly grim and ruthless. He raised his hand. His spear appeared in his palm. He fiercely plunged it into the sand dune. He said coldly, if they dare to go too far this time, the Shaji mercenary group shouldn't even think about peace. Aside from Sha Luo, the rest of the Shaji mercenary group are just a bunch of useless people. Xiao Ding smiled calmly, a hint of coldness in his expression. On the side, Xiao Yan also quietly chuckled. His handsome face slightly looked up. His eyes slightly narrowed, looking at the scorching sun. A hint of an icy cold smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Carefully observing the expressions of the 3 Xiao Yan brothers, Qinglin suddenly realized that these 3 people truly lived up to their name as blood brothers. Regardless of their personalities, they all concealed a terrifying presence. If such people didn't take action, it was fine. But if they did, they were like a starved wolf encountering a delicious piece of meat. Back then, for Nalan Yanran, Xiao Yan could endure the humiliation of the annulment. He abandoned the comfortable life in his clan, gritted his teeth, and lived in the deep forest, fighting with magical beasts all day. He endured a solitary and lonely life in the desert for arduous cultivation. The fact that he could be so patient spoke volumes about his character. Just then, under the scorching sun, a commotion arose among the crowd outside. A team of at least 40 mercenaries slowly parted the crowd and stepped into the isolated area. It's the people from the Xianxia mercenary group. This is going to be interesting to watch. Heh, Xiao Luo finally couldn't hold back. Looking at the group, the surrounding people couldn't help but whisper. It's that fellow who couldn't be patient, ah. Looking at the approaching group, Xiao Ding shook his head and said sarcastically. Source, https://truyenful.vn. Let's go and see, shall we? Xiao Luo hasn't shown his face yet, as the situation hasn't been investigated. The group currently leading the team is Mo Xing, who is the lowest in rank after Xiao Luo in the Xianxia mercenary group. Heh, a defeated opponent of mine actually dares to come and question us. Looking into the distance, Xiao Li said with a cold laugh. Xiao Ding slightly nodded. He waved his hand. Immediately, more than 20 members of the Mo Tai mercenary group appeared around them. Holding weapons, their faces were cold, and they walked out of the isolated area, calmly facing the approaching mercenary group. The two groups slowly met. The atmosphere slightly sank. It wasn't the first time the two major forces in Mo City had clashed. Everyone stop. The Mo Tai mercenary group is carrying out a mission. Please do not interfere. Looking up, Xiao Ding's voice sounded like a normal command, without any hint of concern. Group leader Xiao Ding, I haven't heard that the mercenary guild has issued this kind of mission. Furthermore, the area within several dozen miles around Mo City belongs to everyone. There seems to be nothing wrong with me bringing people here, does there? A man with a vicious face emerged from the Xianxia mercenary group. His gaze swept over the isolated area, and he chuckled darkly. Mo Xing, if not for Xiao Luo intervening last time, I'm afraid you would be a cripple by now. Xiao Li glanced at the man and said with a hint of hostile laughter. The man, called Mo Xing, slightly changed his face. He looked at Xiao Li with a hint of fear and resentment, then retreated 2 steps and said with a cold laugh, we won't beat around the bush. Our group leader is also somewhat interested in this area. Therefore you can scram. A calm voice suddenly came from Xiao Yan, who had remained indifferent on the side. He said it with a smile. Chapter 190. Who are you? How dare you speak to me like that? Hearing this, Ma Tin, was first stunned. Then, looking at the young man's youthful face, he instantly flew into a rage. Xiao Li and Xiao Ding were the leaders of the Mo Tai mercenary group. It was not strange for them to speak rudely to him. But a mere boy dared to be so impolite and insult him. How could Ma Xing not feel enraged and humiliated? No sooner had Ma Xing's shout left his mouth than Xiao Li's face turned cold. He tightly gripped the black steel spear, O Quang Thuong, in his hand, which instantly arced. He took a step forward. The long spear, carrying a sharp force, viciously shot straight toward Ma Xing's throat. Xiao Li's sudden attempt to kill caused Ma Xing's expression to change drastically. He hadn't expected the opponent to be so audacious. However, Xiao Li's strength surpassed his, so he could only retreat awkwardly. As he retreated, his foot tripped, and he subsequently fell but first onto the ground. Xiao Li, if you dare to kill me, our leader will not let you get away with it. Seeing the silver spear quickly advancing toward him, fear flashed across Ma Xing's face, and he shouted. TCH. The long spear stopped abruptly about an inch from Ma Xing's throat. The sharp force actually cut a small line of blood on Ma Xing's throat. Fresh blood streamed out. What gives you the right to speak about my brother? Looking at the streaming blood, the spear still at his throat, and Ma Xing so terrified he dared not move. Xiaoli sneered condescendingly. Swallowing a mouthful of saliva, beads of cold sweat rolled down Ma Xing's forehead. He carefully braced his hands on the sand, then retreated clumsily back to his group, saying with hatred, "Xiaoli, you have courage. Wait until I report this to the leader. Your Mo Tai mercenary group can await your impending doom." Having spoken, Ma Xing let out a startled cry, thinking the spear was coming again, and he hastily led his men to flee. Watching the group of Shaji mercenary group members flee like defeated dogs, everyone around couldn't help but burst into jeers. Useless trash. Regarding Ma Xing's fleeing group, Xiaoli curled his lip. He turned to Xiao Yan and said, "Now that we've publicly chased the Shaji mercenary group away in front of so many people, I think we have made an enemy of them. After Ma Xing returns, he will definitely add fuel to the fire with Luo Bu. I'm afraid tomorrow, the Shaji mercenary group will bring people here to forcibly seize this place." Xiao Yan nodded with a smile. His eyes lightly scanned the surroundings. And he said softly, "Big brother, second brother, you just need to guard this place well. As for the Shaji mercenary group, I will go and deal with them." Can you really do it? If it really doesn't work out?" Xiao Ding frowned, saying with some worry. It's just a great dough master only." Narrowing his eyes, Xiao Yan nodded with a smile. He waved his hand at the two, pulled a sand dromedary, Mada, and leaped onto it, smiling, "Trust me. I will make the Shaji mercenary group keep their heads down, and stay quiet in Mo City for a while." Having said that, Xiao Yan lightly kicked the sand dromedary's flank with his heel. The dromedary kicked up a trail of dust, galloping quickly toward Mo City. Looking at Xiao Yan riding into the distance, Xiao Ding and Xiaoli exchanged glances, both couldn't help but give a wry smile. After a long moment, they said helplessly, "Forget it. I hope this little fellow still has a trump card. If it truly doesn't work out, with the strength of our Mo Tai mercenary group, Luo Bu wouldn't dare to be too arrogant. After all, if it comes to a fight, their Shaji mercenary group will also lose half their men. He won't be able to bear that kind of loss." On the side, Xiaoli raised his hand and laughed loudly. "I'm very curious to see if little Yan can make Luo stay obediently in Mo City. Wait and see." "I trust him," Xiao Ding said softly with a slight smile. The desert moon hung in the sky, placidly enveloping Mo City like a disk. In the western district of Mo City, there was a large courtyard. Lantern lights shone brightly, and the sound of merrymaking occasionally drifted out. In the middle of the courtyard, a banner bearing 5 large characters, Shaji mercenary group, fluttered. In the dark night, a gust of wind blew by, causing the banner to lightly wave. Inside a room in the large courtyard, a lamp drove away the darkness. 2 people were seated in the room. One of them was Ma Xing, the person who had clashed with Xiao Yan and Xiaoli. The person seated at the head seat was a middle-aged man, the leader of the Shaji mercenary group, Luo Bu. Leader, Xiao Ding is getting increasingly arrogant. You must know that in Mo City, the Shaji mercenary group is the strongest. Yet, these 2 young brats, who arrived less than a few years ago, dare to look down on us. If we allow them to continue developing, the consequences will be dire." Ma Xing licked his lips, saying venomously. Seated at the head, the middle-aged man looked up at Ma Xing below, saying calmly, "Did you hear what they are doing there?" No. When I brought my men, we hadn't even gotten close before we were chased away by Xiaoli." Ma Xing's face flushed slightly, and he said awkwardly. Hearing this, the middle-aged man lightly frowned and snorted. Clearly, he was somewhat dissatisfied with Ma Xing's competence. Hearing the snort, cold sweat broke out on Ma Xing's forehead. He quickly interjected, "Leader. Although we don't know their purpose, for the cunning Xiao Ding to pour all his efforts Into finding this item, it must be extraordinary. Furthermore, the place they are searching is not far from Mo City. We can use the pretext of patrol to enter that area. Luo Bu slightly nodded. His face was still a little hesitant. Since he didn't know what they were specifically looking for, he didn't want to start a conflict with the Mo Thai mercenary group. Although he was a great Do master and the strongest person in his group, apart from Ma Xing who was a Do master, the other members were all below Do master. However, the Mo Thai mercenary group not only had the Do master powerhouses Xiao Ding and Xiao Li, but also two other two-star Do masters in their group. This level of strength was much stronger than the Shaji mercenary group. Therefore, Luo Bu was somewhat wary of the Mo Thai mercenary group. Leader seized the opportunity. There are too many secrets in the desert. What if they dig up some ancient cultivation method or Do skill left by predecessors? If that happens, the Mo Thai mercenary group will no longer need to be cautious of our Shaji mercenary group. Seeing Luo Bu's hesitation, Ma Xing cursed inwardly and began to add oil to the fire. All right. Under Ma Xing's urging, Luo Bu was swayed. After pondering for a moment, he finally couldn't help but nod, gather the men tomorrow. Then, we will forcibly seize that area from the Mo Thai mercenary group. Seeing Luo Bu finally nod, a smile bloomed on Ma Xing's face, and a look of hatred flashed in his eyes. The story you are reading is sourced from Thien Full www.Thien Full. Alas! Leader Luo Bu's decision is truly disappointing. A faint voice without any warning suddenly echoed in the room. The sudden voice caused the expressions of the two people in the room to change drastically. They turned their heads, horrified to find that a young man in a black robe had unexpectedly appeared on a chair in the room, completely unnoticed. Who are you? Luo Bu shouted, shocked at the young man's ability to enter the room without detection. However, his voice was slightly shaky. Leader, this is the younger brother of Xiao Ding and Xiao Li. Seeing Xiao Yan's appearance, Ma Xing retreated backward and cried out. Hearing this, Luo Bu's pupils slightly contracted. His eyes fixed intently on Xiao Yan, and he asked in a deep voice. Friend, what business brings you to the Shaji mercenary group late at night? Having personally witnessed Xiao Yan's abrupt appearance, Luo Bu was no fool, and did not mistake this young man for someone ignorant. It's nothing. I just wanted to tell Leader Luo Bu to restrain his subordinates for the next few days. Tell them not to disturb the important matters of my big brother. And second brother, Xiao Yan lightly tapped the tabletop with his fingertips and said with a smile. Brat, you are too arrogant. Who do you think you are? Hearing Xiao Yan's words, Ma Xing shouted furiously. Bastard! Looking up, Xiao Yan saw Ma Xing hiding behind Luo Bu. A coldness flashed across his dark eyes. His body moved abruptly. In that instant, a black shadow, like a streak of lightning, bypassed all obstacles. In a flash, a hand lightly pressed onto Ma Xing's back. He slightly leaned forward and said softly, You're a plotting dog strategist. Your intentions are truly vicious. As soon as he finished speaking, a flame suddenly erupted from Xiao Yan's palm, then rapidly seeped into Ma Xing's body. Ma Xing instantly turned into ashes. Having killed Ma Xing in an instant, Xiao Yan lightly clapped his hands. His foot lightly moved, and he appeared in front of Luo Bu, smiling at his cold sweating face. Looking at the young man's smiling face, Luo Bu's throat felt somewhat dry. The ghostly speed this person displayed earlier truly chilled his heart. To be able to use such speed and strength, his rank must at least be a Do Wang Dao Vong. A Do Wang. Luo Bu looked at the young man's delicate face, groaning softly in his heart. A Do Wang under 20 years old. Well, regarding my suggestion. Xiao Yan looked at the flame on his hand, and asked with a smile. Gulp, gulp. Swallowing a mouthful of saliva, Luobu wiped the sweat from his forehead. A very unnatural smile appeared on his face. He said very knowledgeably, "Everything will be done according to your instructions, Your Excellency. The Shaji mercenary group will absolutely not step into that area a single half step."